Welcome to the Kent Lapp Podcast.
Rick Haley, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
What are you making of everything that's going on? Unprecedented $2.2 trillion stimulus. To my knowledge, the government's never given money out to businesses and said, if you don't lay anyone off, you don't have to pay it back. I don't recall that ever happening. I don't know that it has. Free money in the mail. I mean, the virus is unprecedented. It's sort of a strange time.
It is a strange time.
What are you making of everything?
Well, my opinion might be a little different than most, and you know that I'm kind of that way. I started tracking this over a month ago on a board in my office, and I started looking at the data. Now, obviously, I have to go by if the data is accurate.
Right.
But based on what I've got, I've been tracking the confirmed cases worldwide and in the U.S., and then Tennessee, and then the deaths for the world, the U.S. and Tennessee. And I've got to tell you, from the very beginning, I haven't been scared. And because I'm not listening to the pundits, I've turned the news off for a minute, and I just look at the numbers. And the regular old garden variety flu is worse than this.
Okay.
And that's not a popular opinion right now.
Right.
Now, I just finished a book. I always read, and I finished a book, and he was talking about life is lived forward, but we look back and judge in hindsight. And this virus is kind of the same thing. We know things now that we did not know 1 week ago. We know things now we didn't know a month ago. And so we can look at it with clearer eyes and say coulda, shoulda, woulda, which is basically how we live our lives. Oh, man, if I'd only known that one thing, this would have gone well, et cetera, et cetera. I think when you're in the position that a lot of people are in, the president, mayors, governors, this thing hit quickly, and I think the hysteria it was a tsunami of hysteria, and everybody got caught up in it. The flip side of that is if they were right, if their models, which I put in quotes over and over again, were right, man, this would have been
right.
It would have been horrible.
Yeah, yeah. Well, then what do you do with the question then is, right now we've taken extreme measures. We have shut down the U.S. economy.
Yes.
The biggest and strongest economy in the world shut down. Ask people to stay in their homes or stay close to their homes, not go to work, close businesses. I mean, it's pretty dramatic. When you mention comparing this to the flu, how do you reconcile then how bad this might be if they hadn't taken those drastic measures?
And those are the things we won't know.
Okay.
We can act like it, but we don't know them.
Yep.
We don't know. So it's the old road not taken. Well, had I gone right, then blah, 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 such and such. If I'd gone left, I went left. These are the choices that I made. This is what happened.
Yes.
And so we can speculate till the end of time what would have happened had we not social distanced it, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
The only glimpse into that we'll have are any of the countries or entities that decided not to do that. That might give us a slight glimpse. And so one of the things you look at the U.S., and this is important. This is an important factor. We're a well-traveled society. As a country, we travel more probably than anybody in the world in terms of truly leaving where we go and being a global traveling society. So that's going to make things, viruses easier to catch and easier to spread. When you have maybe a poorer country or a country for whatever reason that doesn't travel as much, well, then obviously there's not as much movement. But so it's going to be interesting to see how people like Sweden come out of this, who has chosen, at least the latest information that I have, they chose not to lock down like crazy.
Really?
We're going to keep going normal, and we're going to be smart about this. If you're vulnerable, stay home.
Okay.
If you're able-bodied and capable and healthy, rock and roll.
Really?
And it's going to be interesting to see how it goes. And also, there's you can manipulate numbers to say anything you want to.
Right.
So that's going to be interesting to see how all this shakes out.
Now, why do you think Sweden did that? Because I don't know much about Sweden's economy. My understanding was it would be a little bit more, could you say, socialistic than America? And maybe that's not correct. I just know they have an extremely robust healthcare system over there. I believe if you have a baby, I want to say the husband gets 6 months off and the wife gets 6 months off, and it could be up to a year. I guess I always kind of pictured them as having a little bit more the government offering more things for free there than we have in America. And so, do you know why they decided to kind of not shut down? Or
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know why. I can't speak educatedly about why they chose to do that. And I don't know if they're still on that path right now. That's just the latest information as of a few days ago that I've read. I've tried to be careful not reading all day, every day about this. I've been trying to be careful about, because it's just, it could be overwhelming. I mean, it really can. You're in your house all day. People don't know what to do. They're scared. And when you're scared, I just don't know if piling on. Now, I don't mean that you need to be uninformed.
Right.
I consider myself a very informed person.
Yeah.
I just don't sit there and waller in it all day long.
Right.
It's just not healthy.
Right. I totally agree with that. And I like the old newspaper. You can see the stack over there. I mean, that's how I like to receive my news. We don't watch live TV. Mm-hmm. We definitely don't watch the news live. Now, with the coronavirus going on, there's been probably 3 or 4 times over the last month and a half where I will pull up like ABC News on Apple TV, the app, and watch some clips. But when you watch TV, you know, they do it in a certain way to catch your attention and to get viewers. It actually doesn't really matter. Right. This is what stuck out to me is it doesn't seem to matter whether reporting on a pandemic or a local bad storm, you know, a bad local thunderstorm. They do it in the same way, and it always does seem to it seems like it's geared to keep attention, drive attention, gain viewership, that type of thing. But I can't imagine, I believe this is true, where some people have the TV on most of the day in their household, and that would, I don't know how you stay sane doing that.
It's funny. So for 2 points, one is it's all about the money with regards to television, with regards to media. If they came on and said, "Hey, everything's pretty good today, guys. You have a good day."
All right.
If they do that,
they're
right.
Yeah.
So
ads are out for the day. They're done.
That's right. So you have to such and such a story at 11, and then they give you the teaser at the beginning, and then they do all the other stuff, and then they get to the end, and then they'll tell you the story. Yeah, and they keep you hooked. It's just like a fish. You got to keep them going. Well, it all is about ad revenue. Every bit of it's about ad revenue. Clickbait on the internet, those type of things. A headline that is specifically designed to get you to click on it. Right. Because more clicks, more views, more revenue. Yes. It's all about follow the money. Yes. And so disasters, they need them. They need crises. They need, whether it's a storm, whether it's an outbreak, whether a political thing. I mean, they can jump from, and then they can manufacture them. And I'm not saying that they do necessarily, but they can. Right. And they probably do. They can turn something that's simple into something very big, so that they can milk it as long as they can, and then they better find another one. And, you know, the news cycle. Yep. Well, it's also very politicized now, right? Sure. I mean, I don't really keep up with it enough to really know. From what I know, the extremes are Fox is conservative and CNN's more liberal, right? And then there's other ones that fall into these camps, and then the heads of these networks, I mean, these are privately owned networks, right? So they're in it for the money. That's right. And the heads of networks are tied in with certain political parties, and there's back and forth there, and they're cutting the stories they don't want to have out there, and they're pushing the stories they do. That's right. And so they control the narrative. They control the narrative. So are you saying that you believe personally that this narrative is way overhyped? That Absolutely. It was overblown? Absolutely. It was sensationalized. I believe so. To what end? Who stands to gain for that? Well, if you're let's go through it for just a second. If you have a company that needs viewers, all you need is a good coronavirus. I mean, what was the statistic? Netflix the first week was up 75% in viewership. This is 75% of a staggering amount already viewed. Netflix was up 75% from the virus? Because people are at home? Yeah. I mean, what else are you going to do? Right. Read? We know people don't read. Right. Yeah. You know, plant a garden. Work? We know people don't work more than they have to. That's exactly right. So I'm going to watch TV. I'm going to catch up on that show I haven't seen or watch the new ones or whatever. And so you look at that again. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not, but I am a person that I try to think differently than most people, and I try to go, what's the angle? Right. What's the angle? Well, that's why I wanted to get your thoughts on it, because I mean,
I'll hear anyone's thought. I'm interested in most people's thoughts on it, but I was particularly interested in your thoughts on it because I knew you weren't a commons conspiracy theorist. Not that you don't have certain theories. It doesn't mean they're all bad. Yeah. You've got theories, but then now you're saying that you think this is overblown. So I am pretty interested in that. So, but are you saying, and back to who stands to gain? Okay, sure, Netflix, and obviously the news heads, the networks, they stand a lot to gain here with the news going on. But I mean, what do you think? They made this? They planned it? Or like, how do you think, what's the tie-in?
Now I'm going to sound like a conspiracy theorist. I think it goes back to China.
Okay.
We have a president now. Some people say orange man bad. There's people that love Trump. There's people that hate him. There's a lot of folks in the middle that say, look, whatever. He is the first president in a long time, really and truly since Richard Nixon, who opened up China through Henry Kissinger, opened up China to the West, to America, and got the American-Sino relations going. He's the first one. He's the first one to stand up and say, "No, wait a minute. Yeah, hang on a second. We don't mind trading with you, but we're going to do this fair. We're going to level the playing field." I read a book called Factory Man. It's by William Bassett, the furniture guy, Bassett Furniture. First 100 pages is about their history, their family history, a lot of gossip, a lot of family turmoil, whatever, skip it. But when he starts getting to the part about manufacturing and how it was done, it was riveting. I could not put the thing down. I would read it till 3 o'clock in the morning. My wife would say, "You've got to come to bed. Furniture can't be that exciting."
Right?
I was like, no, it's not about the furniture. It's about how they did what they did. So this is cool, and it's terrifying. Okay, so you've got a furniture manufacturer. They physically own factories. They've got towns that work there. These people have health care. They've got a job. Is it a phenomenal job, making $150 a year? No, but they've got work. And this little microcosm exists because of this factory. So they make let's say a dresser, and the dresser costs $100 to actually manufacture. Okay, that's materials, labor, and everything. They make it for $100. Well, then they're going to turn around and sell it to their dealers for $200. Boom, doubled their profit. They're profitable. Everybody's happy. The dealer takes it, turns around, sells it for $300 or whatever. These are obviously just generic numbers. Okay. So then China starts producing and really starts cranking. And why are they doing this? Well, they're an agrarian society. They grow things. They don't have commerce the way we do. They don't have industry the way we do. So that starts cranking. And all of a sudden, someone in the furniture industry gets a hold of, hey, they can build a factory for us and make this stuff. Now, you're the owner, so this is what you think. I eliminate 1,800 employees, so I don't have the headache to deal with HR. I'm not going to worry about getting sued. Not going to worry about people not coming in, production issues. They're gone. So you go over to some little town in China. They build you a factory. Now, they say, here's the thing. If you're going to come over here, we'll produce these, but you have to teach us everything you know. Everything. From all these trade secrets that you have learned for 150, 250 years. That's part of the deal. In my family, we call that POTD. POT, that's just part of the deal.
Part of the deal.
That's right. Nice. So in the Haley family, if they say, hey, that's just POTD, we all know what that means.
Know what's up.
Part of the deal, right? So if you're going to come over here, that's part of the deal.
Yep.
Okay. So then you teach them everything you know. So what happened to their learning curve? It wasn't 150 years. It was 6 months. They gained in 6 months what it took you a century to learn because that's part of the deal. But what happens is they now make that same dresser using the same processes that you did, but they can make that for $25.
Right.
Now, you put them on a shipping container, send them across the ocean, and you sell them directly to that distributor, your wholesalers, okay? You now have none of the costs associated with having a factory. You had it made for cheaper than you made it.
Yep.
You sell it to them for the same price, $200. So you went from $100 cost to $25. Now you went, and this is insane. So they buy it, they turn around, sell it, everybody's happy. But then the wholesalers find out you scuttled your facility, just like you did. Then they go, wait a minute, where are these made? They're not made in XYZ, North Carolina anymore, the furniture capital of the planet. They're made in Guangzhou, China, or wherever. XYZ China. So then they find out who's making them and they contact them. Now, the people that are making them, they don't care who they sell them to. A dresser is a dresser is a dresser.
Right.
They don't care. They don't play by the same rules that we play by.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, you go over there and we'll sell you dress. How much? $25 a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Now what happened was these wholesalers started taking out the middleman. The very people who used to manufacture the item are now completely unnecessary.
And is this? Are you talking? Is this a scenario here, or you're saying this happened in
This
that book you're
actually
reading? This
happened in the
to
book.
that
Yeah.
furniture company.
Yes,
the book you're reading.
So Bassett was the only guy, and he was a pariah. He was vilified in that industry. They beat him down in that industry because he kept saying, guys, you don't understand what's happening. Look at the long game here.
Mm-hmm.
He even went over to China. He started putting his toe in it and realizing what's happening.
I see.
And he backed out. And he couldn't compete. He could not compete with the pricing, the manufacturing costs. They were just a fraction of what. There's a story in there that just, of all the stories, this is the one that got me. When they went over to China, he saw a guy with the sprayer putting the lacquer finish on the furniture. Over here, you have hazmat suits. You've got special air systems. You've got filters. You've got everything. We have to have those things.
Yep.
And it doesn't pose an issue or a risk, a health risk to the person that's spraying it. Over there, a guy just picks up and starts spraying it. Mm-hmm. And he says, what's going to happen to that guy? He goes, he'll be dead in 6 months.
Golly.
He goes, when he's dead in 6 months, what's going to happen to the sprayer? And the guy, he looks at him confused. He goes, somebody else will pick it up and start spraying, knowing that he's going to be dead in 6 months,
right?
Because that's going to feed his family,
right?
Which I don't fault any country for trying to get ahead.
Yep.
But when you want to play on that scale, when you want to be part of the World Trade Organization, when you want to be part of the UN, we want to be part of these organizations, these global organizations, then you level it out.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is then, so I'm assuming you're a fan of capitalism in general.
I am a very big fan of capitalism.
Okay, so what would you say then to the people that say, all right, well, what you just described is capitalism at its finest. You have a group of people here or an entity here that can manufacture a product much more efficiently and at a much lower cost than this company over here. They should get the business. Would you say to that, okay, I hear you. That's generally the way that it works, and we're fans of that. However, this group is not playing by the same rules as this group over here. And if we just continue to give them all of our business, they're going to wind up with all of the control. They're not playing by the same rules. And there's no way you can compete with that, running these companies out of business, hurting this economy. Like, is that what you would say to it? Or what would, how else would you kind of think through this capitalistic bent that we have and why coming from China is an issue?
No, I think on China's part, it's brilliant. They're gaming the system. They're doing exactly what I would be doing if I were in their shoes.
Right.
I mean, you're like, well, no, wait a second. You're talking out of both sides of your mouth. No, it's brilliant. Mm-hmm. So it's our responsibility to make sure that we're holding our opponent's feet to the fire. Mm-hmm. You got a book up on your shelf, Tools of Titan, and The 4-Hour Workweek was another one by Tim Ferriss. Mm-hmm. And in there, he talks about winning the judo championship. Mm-hmm. Do you remember that story?
I don't.
Okay, here's how he won it.
I know he did. But.
So he gamed the system. He actually read all of the rules, lost a ton of weight for weigh-in, gained 20 pounds that week, or the next day. Within the next day, he's 20 pounds heavier, so it puts him up 2 or 3 weight classes.
Yeah.
And the rules were if you could get your opponent off of the mat, mm-hmm. and he just kept pushing them out. Mm. He didn't know anything about judo. He didn't know anything about it, and he wins.
Right.
Now, some people say, that's brilliant. I actually think it's brilliant.
Yeah.
But it is gaming the system.
Yep.
The rules weren't set up right. The rules weren't enforced properly. Okay. If you and I are going to play basketball, we have to establish the rules.
I see.
And so if we're going to establish the rules, then we have to play by the rules.
Okay. Okay. So that's helpful. That actually really helps me because I didn't know much about you mentioning Trump. One of the things that he has done that has benefited is getting better rules, essentially better working relationships with China. And when you put it in those terms, that's pretty easy to understand. We have to play by the same rules. So did we just not have our act together when we started entering into trade agreements with China years ago? Or we just let them be too lenient? Or what changed? What is Trump doing to change and have the rules be better for all parties, but certainly on our end.
Again, it's not a popular answer. I know that there are people that will listen to this podcast and will want to drive their car into a ravine when I say this, but he doesn't have to. And this is the interesting thing about him. He and Andrew Jackson are very similar. And I'm from Nashville, grew up 7 miles from the Hermitage. I've read a lot about Andrew Jackson in my lifetime. Andrew Jackson was the first president that didn't owe his candidacy to anyone. He was the first person that didn't owe his candidacy to anyone. He truly owed it to the people and nobody else. So he didn't have a political machine that could tell him what to do.
Interesting.
Well, Trump doesn't either.
Okay.
Nobody can control this guy because he's not in their pocket.
I see.
He financed his initial run completely out of his own pocket. And then when he makes it to the general election, he takes donations. But he makes it very clear, this guy, you're not going to control me. I am the president, and I'm going to make the decisions as the president. And you can hate me all you want to. I don't care.
Right.
I know he's got thin skin, and he'll say, he makes fun of Sleepy Jet or whatever, or Slow Joe or whatever.
Yeah,
he does.
Sleepy Joe.
Sleepy Joe, and there's parts of people hate that. And part of me can't stand it, and I cringe every time he does it. And on the other hand, I absolutely love it.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't play by the same rules in terms of not, being in someone's pocket. So you got a guy that says, look, I'm not interested in cutting off China, a trade with China. I don't want to cut off trade with anybody. He's smart enough to understand that trade is a good thing. He's a smart enough man to understand that. But he wants to do it fair.
Right.
If you and I are going to trade something, I don't care what it is, we have to establish the stock exchange. It's exactly what it sounds like. There literally was a table near Trinity Church, very very close to Trinity Church in New York City, down there on what is now Wall Street. It was an actual table and chairs, and they would go outside half the year, and they would literally exchange stocks.
Really?
That was the stock exchange.
Really? Like they'd
Yes.
have these tokens
Yes.
or something, and you just kind of trade.
No, actual stock certificates.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And you say, hey, would you pay this much for these certificates?
I want 4 for this company. Well, I've got 6. Well, that's fair.
Oh, interesting.
They would trade. So it's the stock exchange. That's where that name came from. And then, of course, it grew into what it is today. And so we have a set of rules that we can agree on. Football's got rules. Basketball. There's rules in all kinds of things. There's rules of the road. Is it speeding if you don't get caught? Right? Was I speeding? Well, yes, you were speeding. You just didn't get caught.
Yeah.
It was 55 miles an hour. That's what it said. You were going 73. Yeah, but the cop didn't see me. But it doesn't mean you weren't speeding. Because that same argument doesn't work when you get pulled over and you say to the cop, and I quote, yeah, but the lady in front of me was going even faster.
Right.
And he says to you, and I quote, I didn't pull her over.
Yeah.
I pulled you over.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What she was doing is irrelevant. You were the one that got pulled over, and you were going faster. So it's when I look at those rules, I think what Trump is trying to do is he's trying to say, listen, we just don't want to be a chump. We don't want to pay for everybody's stuff and not take our share of whatever the benefits are of that thing.
Yep.
That's commensurate to that. If we pay, 25% of an international organization, we want to know that we're getting 25% of the benefit from that.
Right. Yep. So what did Trump do to make the playing field more fair or level? Did he put an import tariff on anything coming in from China?
No, absolutely.
Did we go over there and say, hey, we're happy to keep buying from you, but you have to raise your standards for your workers? Or what did they do?
We started to see that. So the first thing, the sanctions worked. The sanctions started working big time. They really started working because no one had ever done that. People had threatened them before. And I'm not a huge fan of sanctions unless they are used as a stick. The carrot and the stick.
What's a sanction?
So a sanction, not a sanction, a tariff.
Tariff.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
a tariff.
Okay.
So a tariff.
And what is it? What is a sanction? Because we put sanctions on, wasn't it Iran?
Iran.
Isn't that a little bit more extreme?
Yeah.
Is that where you get into you cannot export particular things to us?
That's correct.
Okay, and then a tariff is
Right,
great,
a tax.
but here's
tariff
the
is
tax.
a tax.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So if you're going to import this glass right here from China, and this glass cost 50 cents, and you say, well, there's going to be a 50% tariff on it. Well, now this thing's 75 cents.
Right.
That gets big quickly.
Yes.
And so then you do certain goods and things like that. And so we've got agreements with agriculture. America produces so much food. We produce enough food in this country to feed the world. And people don't realize that. Our agriculture is insane in this country. We have gotten so efficient. When this country became a country, 1776, 1783, depending on wherever you look at that, but around that area, we were about 98%, roughly 98% agriculture.
Did you say 98 or 90?
98.
98%
of the people in this country made a living or grew their own food of some kind.
Man.
So either you were a farmer or you had a garden or something like that. It's what it took to feed everybody. Then as technology gets better, all of a sudden John Deere invents a steel plow. And then you've got cotton gins. You've got all these different inventions that will allow us to get more efficient. The McCormick Reaper, those type of things. And as these inventions get better, all of a sudden that number of what used to be farming, people can leave the country, go into the cities, and do other jobs.
Yep.
And as that happens, we can feed more because per acre, we can now feed more people per acre. The output's greater. Then the science gets better and the technology and genetic studies and, all that stuff. And so now we're down to 2%. 2% of the people.
2% of the people
in this country.
Okay, so it's not a percentage of GDP.
No.
And the 98% was not GDP either. It was the people.
The people.
Oh, fascinating.
98% of the people.
But now we're down to 2% of the people are directly involved with agriculture?
That's right. And they feed the rest of us. Wow. Isn't that insane?
That is,
it's
impressive in some way. It's like division of labor at its finest.
It's unbelievable. And so you got a guy with a $1.5 million combine. He's got surround sound in it. Air conditioning, air suspension, and the dude he's got a 7,000 acre farm and one man.
And autopilot. Those things have autopilot too.
All satellite, every bit of it.
Yeah.
And so we can look at yields using satellite, those type of things, and we can use mapping, GPS, geographic information systems, GIS. We can use all that stuff to see where our yield is. We can say, well, you've got an area that's 48 acres over here on this latitude. Its yield it's half of what the rest of it is. What's going on there? They can dig into that. I mean, that's insane. And so you just keep getting yields better and better and better, regardless of what and so we've got all this agriculture that we got to do something with it. So I don't know. Why don't we start putting it in gas? Ethanol. Right?
And that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we've been doing that for a long
time. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We as a government, we pay our farmers not to grow. I think let that soak in for just a moment. We pay them not to grow. We've become so efficient. We can literally produce so much.
What do you mean we pay them not to grow?
Well, we got to keep prices up so that people can stay in business.
Yeah.
Because we can produce so much in a good year. If we have reasonable conditions with weather and things like that, we can produce so much.
Okay. But are we actually paying farmers to not grow?
Sure, we'll subsidize them not to grow.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Are we paying them do we just subsidize them so that they don't have to go out and grow more because they don't need the money because we just gave it to them? Or do we actually pay them not to grow the particular crops that they could? Like I've not heard about
not
this.
to grow the crops they could because we need the prices to stay up.
Interesting.
Yeah, because if you grow corn.
Yeah.
And you just have an amazing crop. If you got a bumper crop, well, supply side economics, supply and demand. Well, all of a sudden the supply is out your ears, pun intended, with the corn,
But what does this have to do with China?
So one of the things that Trump had worked in this last deal was for them to buy an enormous amount of agriculture.
I just saw that the other day. Yeah, I just saw something about it was just in the Wall Street Journal, and it was referencing something about what the amount was that China had a contract for them to buy agriculture. I forget what it was. I don't even know if it said. But yeah, it crossed my mind that
That's right.
They have an agreement to buy a certain amount every year from us.
Right. And so we need somebody to buy the things that we produce. And we can produce a lot. I think people are shocked at how efficient the manufacturers in this country can be when we put our minds to it. It is insane. I love America. I am an American man. I'm telling you, I am patriotic. My kids, I'm one of the only houses on my neighborhood that has the flag out front, and it stays out there. And my kids like, you get teary-eyed, Dad. You're darn right I do. Absolutely I do. This country, if you understand the ideals that built this country, we have changed the world. We've changed the world. It is insane. I'm not apologetic about it. I do not apologize for being an American, but boy, I thank God for it every day. I can tell you that. I didn't choose to be born here at this time the way I was in this country. I was fortunate. I was blessed, and I recognize that. But I'm not going to apologize for it.
Yeah.
What I would like to do is spread that. I want other people to be able to enjoy that. And we can do those types
Other
of things.
countries, other societies.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
What would you spread? What resonates so much with you with the United States of America?
I think for me, it has to be human value. We value human life in this country. Well, at least some people do. As part of our culture, way more than others. It's a big part of who we are. You mean to tell me you'll actually start a war to save those 7 hostages? You're damn right we will. Oh, yeah, we will. Yeah, because they're Americans, and you don't do that. Not because I'm trying to be John Wayne, because it sends a message. Yeah, we're going to come and get them.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mean you'd take out 30, 50 men to get them? Oh, yeah, absolutely we will. Yeah. Because we're going to get them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I know that sounds like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. We care about life, but then we would do that.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it kind of the difference between killing and murder? The Bible says do not murder.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't say, it doesn't necessarily say don't ever kill.
I have a friend that he just retired. He was a sergeant major, E9, 11 tours. 11.
To Iraq or where?
Middle East predominantly.
Okay.
Yeah. I did one in Kosovo and one in Africa, but the other 9 were in the Middle East. I've known him since he was in high school. We've known each other since we were kids. Love him to death. The man's a beast. He's 6'3". He's 6'3" and right at 300 pounds. A solid slab of muscle. He could kill me and you with. He doesn't need anything.
With anything.
He doesn't need anything. A grain of rice. He could flick it at us. And he's He's amazing dad. He's a gentle man. And he's smart as a whip. He is just smart as a whip. And I asked him, he was a sniper for a while as he was working his way up through the chain and learning different things. And I asked him, I said, do you ever regret it? Do you ever feel weird? He said, I have intel on the men that I'm killing that you don't have. Right. He said, I have seen the things that these men have done.
Right.
You have no idea, and you don't want to know. I said, so nothing. You don't? He goes, absolutely not. I don't, absolutely, because I know what taking out a man like that does.
Yeah.
I understand it. Yeah.
It's interesting because that's how I always thought that I would react if I was in those shoes. But then a lot of what you see on movies and things, it's like you don't see much. You don't hear that very often.
Yeah, it's Hollywood.
Okay,
it's Hollywood.
And I have to assume too, like if someone does wind up dead that you didn't intend for them to be dead, yes, that's different entirely.
The way he talks about like he lost a gentleman on his detachment one time, but he lost him from a heart attack. He didn't lose him from battle, and it affects him more than any of the quote unquote bad guys he took out. I mean, he speaks of that man with a sense of just sadness and reverence and just missing him so badly. And this is the thing. This is not a man filled with hate. Right. He's not a hateful man. He loves people. Yep. He would tell me about being in the different villages that he would be in, and he was conversational in several languages, Pashtun, Farsi, different languages. He was conversational, and he would just explain to me how nice they were to him and the culture, but how it was a dance. It was a fine dance, what you had to do.
Yes.
And he loves people. I mean, he does. He really does. Yep. But he understands evil exists. Mm-hmm. It is real. It's a real thing. Mm-hmm. There are evil people on this planet, and they want to do folks harm. Mm-hmm. Period.
Yes. Well, even what you're saying about one of the strengths of the United States of America being a respect or dignity of life, value life and give it honor. I think that's even evident in our military.
Sure.
Because I'm not, obviously there's mistakes that get made, but for the most part, the United States military, it's good news when they show up, unless you're a bad guy.
That's right.
But that's not always the case with other countries' military. So the exporting of that value, that dignity on human life would be something that you would like to see. You think that America can offer parts of the world that?
I think it can offer it to people who want it. It's kind of like salvation. Right. Jesus said, here's the way. And he opened his hand and he says, all you got to do is take it. But I can't give it. I can't make you take it. I love movies, by the way. So if I quote movies, I apologize. But there was a great Bruce Almighty. It was Jim Carrey from years ago. And he's talking to Morgan Freeman. And he says, how can I make her love me? And Morgan Freeman, who, of course, who's playing God, he leans into him and goes, if you figure that one out, let me know. Yeah. And I'm thinking, man, that's like the greatest line in the whole movie, right? Like that's a great movie, And so it's like salvation. I can't make you take it. Well, I can't make you want to not have a infant mortality rate of 10 times the world. I can't make you not want that. Yep. What I can do though is I can try to expose you to another way. If you've always used a screwdriver to bang in a nail, and then somebody says, listen, I don't know if you know, this is called a hammer. Well, what do? Well, you can use it. You may say, no, I'm good. I've always used the screwdriver. I've always used this thing. You might not even know it's called a screwdriver. I've always used this thing to... If you want to try it, you can. Do you want to try it? No, I have no desire. And so, well, what can you do? Well, you can make them. Probably won't work too well. It maybe. Or you could grab a nail, and when you're building your thing over here, and you pound it twice, and the nail's already in the wood, and he's over here still hitting it with the screwdriver, and he's going, that was way easier. And you don't say anything about it, and you just do it again. And then all of a sudden, if that person has any form of, any amount of humility at all, they may go, can I try that? And then all of a sudden, you hand it to them. Boom. Obviously metaphorical for what we can do just by showing people there is a better way. And that way is you care about your country, you care about human beings, you care about commerce. You let the market take care of things. Now, when you've got a country that comes in and slaps down $2 trillion, there will be repercussions for what we've done.
Let's talk about that. But before that, you mentioned that you will get teary-eyed just thinking or talking about the history of America, because it means a lot to you, and you don't apologize for it. Do you see a lot of people now apologizing?
Oh, absolutely.
For being,
yes.
And where did that come from?
Guilt.
Okay.
It came from guilt because they didn't earn it. Imagine this: you take a person, and this is a generalization. I understand that. I'm not going to say every or all. That's not a fair, but a lot. We can say that. You have the first generation person who was poor. They worked their butt off, 70, 80, 100 hours a week. I had a guy one time. He's a millionaire. He says to me, I only work half a day, from 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. I only work half a day. If that's one, I'll take that.
I'll give you more.
He says, I only work half a day, 4 a.m. to 4 p.m. So me being the funny guy I am, I tried to beat him to his office one day because I needed to meet with him. So I show up at 3:20, and he knew I was going to be there that day.
3:20 a.m.?
A.m. Dude, I'm usually R-E-M, right? I'm like, he shows up.
At 3:20?
He's there. He beats me there. He's already working.
Wow.
He's already working. This man was a machine, right? Okay, so that's first generation.
Yep.
And then he goes out and makes a bunch of money, sacrifices, pays his bills. If he's a Christian, he tithes. He does the right things. And then instead of having a gazillion square foot house, and he can, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that at all, but he does without a little bit, and then he chooses to invest a lot of that money. And he puts that capital to work. He employs people. Okay, so now he's an employer. People have a job because of him, and he does that, right? Okay, now, second generation, what are they going to do? If they were raised in the company, I don't know. Maybe they get it, maybe they don't. But by the time you get to about generation number 3, especially if there's a lot of money involved, they're trust fund babies. Not all, but as a general rule. Now they feel guilty. Now they feel guilty. Why do they feel guilty? Because they didn't do anything to earn it, except have the last name.
Right. It's almost like that, not to interject, but it's like that African proverb that says basically if you don't teach your children or the next generation the ways, I'm butchering it, but if you don't teach them the ways, they will burn the village down just to feel its heat.
That's exactly right. Absolutely. And so I think what happens is we give and we want better for our kids. We absolutely want better for our kids. That is good parental responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
That's being a good parent. That's being a good American, a good Christian, you want more for your kids than you had. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think how you go about it, you got to be very careful, especially if you've had any measure of success, financial or otherwise. You've got to be very careful with that. And so I think as a rule, we've become, as a country, I'll give you an example. We do food pantry at our church. The people who are overweight that come in is amazing. It's just an observation. It's not a judgment. I'm not judging them. I got several pounds myself, way too many. But it's interesting. Those people are considered poor, and yet they're obese.
In most societies, it wouldn't work like that,
That's
would it?
exactly right.
Yeah.
In most societies, you can't come to a food pantry in an automobile. You drive there in an automobile. You've got a cell phone. You actually have a roof over your head, and you are way overweight. Now, our job's not to judge those people. We're going to feed them. We're going to take care of them. We're going to provide services for them because we're the church. That's what we do. We love our fellow human being. But it is one of those, I just finished a book yesterday, and he talks about the periphery of things, catching things out of the side of your eye. That's one of those things I noticed. Most of the people that we serve at our food pantry are overweight.
Interesting.
Very interesting to me. And then it's not a judgment or something against them. But if you really and truly and genuinely are poor, I mean by the world standard. So what does that say if you're considered poor in America? Where's that standard on the world scene?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Well, poor in America, you're still doing pretty good.
Right.
Probably.
Well, so I tell the story,
Globally.
and my kids laugh, and they've heard it so many times. So for 2 years when I was a kid, I didn't have a bed. My brother and I slept on a sleeping bag underneath the table because we lived in a converted attic, and it was probably, 12 feet wide and maybe 20, 25 feet
The whole
deep.
family was in this
Yeah,
attic, or
four of
the
us.
attic was your bedroom?
No. The attic was the whole apartment. So
And
it
you
was
had 4 kids? And there was 4 of you kids?
Well, there was 2 kids.
Two
It was me and my
kids?
brother, and then my
Okay.
mom and dad.
Wow, in a 12 by 24 attic?
Somewhere around 12 by 24, something like that. I was, second grade. I could reach up and touch. I could palm the ceiling.
Okay.
So I mean, we're small guys. I'm 5'9". I'm the tallest until my son passed me.
Right.
I was the tallest Haley. But even as a kid, our heads were close to the ceiling.
Wow.
To use the bathroom, to sit on the toilet, you had to put your feet in the tub. Right. And you had to put your arm on the sink
Yeah.
because you couldn't fit. And so all this stuff was crammed in this little apartment. But here's the thing about it. This is interesting. Still never went without food. In the wintertime, still had heat. Summertime, still had an air conditioner. Now think about that for a second. Didn't have a bed, but I had food in my belly.
Mm-hmm.
I had indoor plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
When I washed my hands, it just went. When I flushed the toilet, bloop, it went away.
Yep.
Gone.
Yep.
So think about that standard. And we were considered poor compared to most Americans. In the world, wait. You got running water?
Right. Yep.
Yep.
Well, when do you think this feeling of maybe guilt or didn't earn it, when did this start to kind of creep into America? Is it these dang millennials or?
No, I think it happened way before that. I think some millennials are absolutely, and they just drive me crazy, and they are lazy as all get out. But man, that's in every generation. Every generation has got whiny, lazy people. There's a great quote by, I think it was Aristotle or Socrates, talking about, the youth of today want nothing but entertainment, and they're spoiled brats. It was 2,000, 3,000 years ago. I mean, it's insane.
Socrates said this?
Yeah, it was. I could look it up if you want me to.
The youth of, say it
Yeah.
again, because it sounds like someone would have said this like last year.
It does. And
Yeah.
I actually show people this. I read the quote and I go, who said that?
Yeah.
And they'll say, oh, that's Trump. Trump said that or something
okay,
like that.
yeah.
I go, actually, no, it was
Thousands
and
of
I
years
can find
ago.
It. It was thousands
Yeah.
of years ago. So
Yeah.
this is not a new thing.
Right.
But we are in a time, though, where we have never seen prosperity like this My son says, as a quote he uses all the time, and you've met Preston, he's 19 now. He says, Dad, he says, good times breed weak men. Weak men breed bad times, and bad times breed strong men.
Yeah, fascinating.
I hope I'm not butchering that.
Right.
But that's, so we're in that, where are we in that cycle? It's that whole cycle with, you read the Bible, okay, we're free, then we sin, now we're in bondage, then we reach out and repent, then we're free again. Then everything's good, so now it's time to party.
Yep.
And then we get ourselves back into bondage, and it's just this cycle.
Yep.
And so when you look at the way that we get to live, I mean, if you and I wanted a Coca-Cola product right now, how far do we physically have to go from our chairs to have a Coca-Cola product in our hand?
Probably not far. Yeah.
You know?
We could definitely walk there if we needed to.
We could walk there if we needed to.
Yeah.
A, good testament to Coca-Cola. Good job, fellas. And B, what does that say about our society? If you and I need gas for a car right now, how far do we have to go to get fuel? And by the way, when we get there, they're going to have it.
Right.
It's not going to be iffy.
Yep.
They're going to have it.
Yep.
And if you wanted a Snickers, an actual brand name Snickers, right now, how far do you have to go to get it?
Not far enough.
Not far enough. Not far enough. And so what is our standard of living? I'm not complaining. It's a great thing. But as it's gotten better, we've gotten further away from realizing and understanding what it took to get it.
Right. Yes.
What it took to get it.
Yes. Yeah, certainly. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. So if you were, and good times do breed weak men. We were just talking about this the other day with Andrew McGarity. You know, he feels like a lot of people are, where'd that strength go? Where'd the strong people go? You look back and you mentioned 1783 or 1776. 1740, those guys riding around on horses telling people about Jesus. Strong. You had to be.
Yeah.
Someone going on a ship from England to America, and you may or may not make it the whole way. Other people on the ship may not make it with you, but you do it. You've got purpose. You're not sitting in front of your TV 6 hours a day. Just strong men and women. Right. And we have lost some of that. Certainly.
Well, that's one of the reasons why immigrants do better in America than Americans do. We're born into it. We take it for granted. You got somebody that says, no, sir, not where I come from.
Right.
I'm going to take advantage of everything I can. And they kick our butts on everything. Well, God bless them. That's amazing on their part. I don't fault them.
Yep.
We got to teach our kids how to think.
Right.
We got to teach them how to solve problems. I don't mean go bust up rocks. That's not the answer.
Yep.
But how to think, how to be able to maneuver. I'm always talking to my daughters, all my kids about this. Can you take something from here and apply it here? Those are the people who are going to make a difference in this world in the future. You learn something over here that had nothing to do with this thing, but you see how it's connected. You learn something about furniture, how a doohickey went together, how something happened, how a supply chain happened over here in seed and feed, and and all of a sudden you can apply it to the
So being able to identify and apply principles, and strategies.
That's right.
And even tactics sometimes.
That's
I
right.
totally agree with that. Well, what do you think then? Here we are in 2020. There's technology everywhere. We can be a very soft society. People can be soft now and do just fine. So what are you doing with maybe your children, or how do you think we can prepare or train, or what can we do to fight against this softness?
Well, number one, recognize it. That's the first step. You have to recognize that the softness exists. I've been very fortunate not to be addicted to substances before, but I've had some friends that have been, and they tell me what's the first step. And as Alcoholics Anonymous, you have to recognize there's a problem, right? You have to recognize it. So the first thing you have to say is, my kids are wimps. Well, that's terrible. Oh, what about their self-esteem? Forget their self-esteem.
Yeah.
Forget it. Listen, if you win something in my house, you win it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I played horse the other day with my 12-year-old. She beat me. She legitimately beat me, and that kid knew. You'd have thought she won the MVP for the Super Bowl,
Right? Yeah,
right?
that's great.
Because
you weren't about to let her beat you.
No,
I
I'm
get
not.
that for sure.
It's shoots and ladders, yeah, and I'm going to beat him too.
Yep.
And when he beats me, it's because he's going to actually beat me. You mean you don't do things to bolster your? Of course I do. And when they bring me the picture of the dragon, and I can't figure out that it's a dragon, I say, "Well, tell me about it, buddy." Well, that looks fantastic. Of course, I'm going to do those things.
Yeah.
But as they get older, hey, listen. You need to understand the world's not going to bend to you. Well, I have sensory issues. I get that. But the world's not going to bend to your sensory issues. You better learn to deal with them. I'm a slow reader. I was in the remedial reading class as a kid. Never read. We didn't have books in our house. We had a Bible that was always dusted, and don't you dare set something on it. But we never read it. But man, it was pretty, beautiful. But we didn't have books in my family. And we just didn't have them in the house. We weren't readers, but I could tell you the lineup for TV every single night. I could tell you what's on any channel. Now, back then, it was about 5, but I could still tell you what was on TV.
Yeah.
And I didn't start reading until I graduated from college.
Really?
Yeah, I started seeing the value in
reading books.
Yeah.
You could read.
Oh, of course.
You could read, but you didn't really grab a book and start reading until you graduated from college.
Right.
So low 20s.
Yeah,
right around 20-ish.
Early 20s. I started reading for me to gain knowledge. And here's the thing about it. I don't want to read so I can have the knowledge and the wisdom. I would feel guilty. I want to do it so I can share it. God put me on this earth to be a teacher. I am convinced. But just because it's to be a teacher does not mean it's in a classroom with a whiteboard.
Right.
That's not what that means. You don't have to be that way.
Yep.
If that's your calling. My calling is to be a teacher.
Yeah.
But how we teach is different. I've got 6 kids.
Yep.
4 are still at home. And so what the things that we do, number one, you're going to think. And we're going to challenge you to think. And it's tough. 2 of my kids hate math. 2 of them are phenomenal in math. The 2 that are out of the house, both of them, one of them was fantastic and the other one was okay.
Yeah.
And made by.
Yeah.
But of the 4 that are left, I got 2 that just, and one that hates it. I mean, she detests it. You're going to do it.
Yeah.
And well, why do I have to do that? Because you need to exercise part of your brain. Well, am I ever going to use this? I don't know. Right. I tell her my story. Listen, I didn't pay attention in geometry. I didn't pay attention in geometry. I'm in college. I'm working on a construction site. These toothless rednecks that can't put together a coherent sentence are using complex geometry to frame this house. I had no clue it was the Pythagorean theorem. I just knew it was the 3-4-5 rule. That's what they called it. I had no idea. I didn't know how to take something here and apply it here.
Right.
And that terrified me.
Yep.
And I was so impressed by those guys. I felt like an idiot. I'm getting honors in college, these high-level courses. These guys can't spell college.
Right.
And they can build this amazing structure with these double compound mitered cuts, and it fits perfectly.
Yep.
I was very quiet and very humbled on that job site.
Yeah.
I didn't speak. I was very clear where the pegging order was, and I was the gopher.
Yeah.
Go get the wood. That's all you're doing is handing the wood up.
What's amazing about that is like the rules of geometry still apply. Like that's the thing about math. That's what I love about math is like it or love it. It is what it is.
That's right.
You can't change it.
That's right.
Whether you know everything about it or not doesn't matter. The rules apply. And so here you have these people that don't know the rules. They didn't go to college, but but the rules still apply and they somehow figured out what they need to know and they're leveraging those rules, for their good and the good of other people. It's so great.
That's exactly right.
So you teach your kids, so battling against this softness, you're trying to teach them to think.
Yeah, so we do several things. Number one, in our house, we have one TV. That's it. And here's the rule, and this is my wife's rule, and I love it. The more I've really pushed into her wisdom, Proverbs 31, I mean, it's fantastic. If you're married,
our household would be so lost without Mariana.
Yeah. I mean, she's amazing,
Can't
right?
imagine.
And so Bonnie is the glue that holds everything together. I should nickname her Elmer, right? That should be her nickname. Come here, Elmer.
Maybe not.
That's right.
Maybe not.
Because she's
a good way to think about it.
She's the glue that holds it together, right? and it's like, okay, well, so what do we do? There's one TV in the house, and it has to be in a cabinet. So when it's TV time, the doors are open and we're actively watching TV. Whether that's something that's educational, a lot of the DVDs we have for the kids, some of their schooling DVDs are appropriate for that. Whether we're sitting down and watching, hey, we have Disney Plus. Sure. We'll watch Mulan. Sure. We love it. We'll sit down. There's a time when that's appropriate. But then the cabinet gets shut. So we go several days and the doors won't be opened. Is that intentional? Partly. And then the other part is that my kids have just grown up not around that stuff all the time. Well, what about phones and stuff like that? Oh, no. I had a parent the other day complaining about their kid being on the phone. I just got tickled. They said, well, you guys seem like good parents. What do you do? And I kind of furrowed my eyebrow a little bit, looked at her right in the eyes. I go, tell them to get off of it. And she goes, oh, that would never work. And I thought, oh, you're helpless. Bless your heart.
Right.
Bless your heart. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
I tell my kid one time, get off that phone. And you better put that thing down. When I was a young parent, I used to count. Young man, 3, 2, no. I had a very, very good, wise parent teach me, you never count down for your kids. I'm not repeating myself.
Okay.
You heard me. I'm the authority in this house. You got it?
Yeah.
You're done.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean wait till I'm finished with this one. I need to save this game or whatever excuse.
Right.
It means hit the off button now.
Yeah.
Not because I'm a tyrant, because there's a clear pecking order of authority here.
Right.
I am the authority in this house. You are not. You're the child. I used to always. I read that you always reach down when you're talking to a small kid. You always get down their level. That's not the case. If it is a tender moment, if it's a moment of love and affection, absolutely. If it is an authoritative moment, you lord over them. They need to think you're Voltron standing right over top of them. They need to see how big you are. So my 5-year-old looks up at me. I mean, he's waist high.
Yeah.
Dad is enormous to this kid. And he needs to see that if it's an authoritative moment. Now, at that same time, I will go down on my knees and give him the biggest bear hug you've ever seen.
Right.
They get love. They get way more love than they get discipline.
Yeah.
But they get to discipline.
Yes.
And they know.
It's not an either or.
That's not an either or.
Yeah.
They don't have to exist in a vacuum. And they know. Mom ain't kidding. When mom says it, when dad, oh, this is a good one. If mom says it, don't come ask dad.
Right.
Oh, man, that'll.
Yeah. That happens. We have kids old enough to do that too. Mom says no, they come check with dad.
No.
So it does happen. But what I like about your parenting style is it seems clear to me that the kids are not the epicenter of your universe.
No, they are not.
Because I think when kids are the epicenter of the parent's universe, something's gone really, really wrong.
And that's part of this whole thing. Think about it. American Idol. It's about me. Selfies. I've seen people take selfies at funerals, Kent. Are you kidding me? We're at the 9/11 memorial in New York, and people have got their phones out taking selfies, doing the whole, all that crap. I wanted to go over and just punch. Stop. 3,000 people died because some terrorists, some evil people that we were talking about earlier, crashed a plane into a building, and you're taking a selfie? I don't mind taking a picture of the thing. That's appropriate.
Right.
But you're taking a picture. Are you that narcissistic? Seriously?
Yeah.
Or you think the world revolves? One of my redheaded daughter, Abigail, she can sing like an angel. The girl has got a voice. She made some chocolate chip cookies the other day that were horrible. I mean, terrible. She goes, how were they? I said, they're horrible. And she looked at me just despondent, like, did you just? I said, they're terrible. I looked at her and I said, woman, you can sing. You got a voice like an angel, but you can't make cookies for nothing.
Right.
We got to work on that.
Yeah.
Now, my other daughter can bake better than anything you've ever seen. Girl couldn't carry a tune from here to there.
Right.
It's painful.
Yeah.
And she'll sing something, and then one of the other kids would go, please stop singing. She goes, well, I just want to sing. And she'll go, Daddy, do you like my singing? I go, nope.
Yeah.
But you sure can bake. But here's the thing about it. Now, some parents would say that's mean. No, it's honest.
Yep.
My wife knows when she looks at me and she says, how does this look? She's going to get an honest answer.
Yep.
Because if I don't think it looks good on her, I'll go,
You'll say.
I'll go, no.
Yeah. Yeah, I can really appreciate that. That's how we roll too. I mean, what have you always taken care to have done to establish that clear chain of authority? Have you used corporal punishment a lot? Have you used timeouts? Have you taken privileges, taken certain foods? What have you done? What are the punishments that have worked for you?
It's a great question. It is child specific. We've got a saying in our family, and you could look at any one of my kids and you could wake them up from a dead cold sleep and say, fair, and they would go, and equal are not the same thing. Fair and equal are not the same thing. One of the greatest illustrations I've ever seen is these 3 kids trying to see over a fence to see a ball game. And there are some boxes down there. And it shows them Equal, they all are standing on two boxes. One kid's really short, one's normal size, and one's really tall. The really tall guy doesn't need a box at all to see over the fence.
Mm-hmm.
The normal guy, he just needs one. The short guy, he needs two. That is fair.
Mm-hmm.
Equal is they all get a box.
Right.
If they all get a box,
Interesting.
the tall guy is way over the fence.
Mm-hmm.
The middle guy is exactly where he needs to be. And the short guy, he can't see anything.
Right.
So if we sit down, if it's something as simple as a meal, well, he got 3 biscuits. Yeah, he outweighs you by double. He's 16 years old. You're 5. Shut up.
Yeah.
And we're not going to say shut up, but I mean, that's harsh. But I mean, that's the fair and equal are not the same thing. He needs 3 times the calories you need, you know, so those type of things. So in our family, what we've done is we have created an environment where, if you say punishment, because there are punishments, you know, discipline, I guess you could say, it is specific to that child. A stern look. My redheaded one, Abigail. If she thinks I'm disappointed at her, that's it.
Right.
I mean, it just crushes her. All right. My other one, not so much.
Yeah.
My other daughter that's still home. Whatever. She'll get over it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that girl, you take away something else.
Mm-hmm.
So what works for one, you know your kid. So what works for one doesn't work for others. So, well, he did such and such and he only got so-and-so. Yeah. And what's your point? I will literally, what's your point? Well, that's not fair. Well, fair is a place you take your kids to ride rides.
Right.
Fair is fair. It's what's right for that child.
Right. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to have kids very long, or you don't have to have many kids, and you don't have to have very long to realize they are very different.
Yeah.
So paying attention to what works for some and what doesn't work. But you're not afraid to use corporal punishment if you need to.
If I need to, I will. I had to, for the first time in a year, use it on my 5-year-old the other day. He disobeyed his mom directly.
Yeah.
And I said, and I popped him on the butt twice.
Yeah.
I never use your hand. I've always learned never use your hand.
Right.
Use an implement. And so I have a bamboo back scratcher.
That gets the job done?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And they know.
One thing that was encouraging to us too, because, you know, Lincoln was our first, and he got quite a lot of spankings. I got a ton of spankings, man. As a kid.
I did. Yeah.
I got a ton of, I'm saying I did. I got a ton of spankings. I'm just so, if there's a testament to, hey, you get spanked a whole lot and survive it, and it's going to be for your good, like I'm that guy. Yeah. So that was kind of our philosophy with parenting out of the gate. And, but what I did notice was, after a few years, you start to have to do that quite a lot less.
That's right.
Even for someone that's, even for a kid that's very effective with. It's not like you're going to be doing that for the next 10 years. No. It's just, it's a season.
That's right.
Back to teaching them to think. That's an important one. Is there anything else? So you're limiting TV time. I'm assuming you're encouraging reading books.
Well, not encouraging. It's just a way of life.
Okay.
We have an actual library in our house. And so that was one of my goals, dreams. My wife and I will celebrate our 21st anniversary next week. And when we were married, thank you. When we were first married, we've known each other since we were 14. When we first got married, someone encouraged us, challenged us to sit down together and write out 100 dreams. That is a daunting task.
Yeah, it sounds daunting.
It is unbelievable. You get to about 30 and you're like, it's amazing. And here's the rules. And I love to give people these rules. These are kind of my rules. And I've learned when I've helped people do this, it's really cool. Rule number 1, make sure you go use the bathroom first, because you need to sit down and not get up until you have 100.
You get distracted. It's too hard to get back into it.
You won't finish it. When you start, don't get up until there's 100. Rule number 2, they don't have to be your dreams together. If you're into watches and you've always wanted to own a Patek Philippe and she doesn't give a Philippe about watches, put it down there. It's okay. If she's always wanted to see, I don't know, Cats on Broadway or whatever, and you can't stand the theater, still put it on there. So the dreams are this. It's 100 dreams. Things you want to own, things you'd like to do or experience, people or organizations you'd like to help, money you'd like to give. It's not all about you. And there are no limits. Don't limit yourself. Don't be reasonable. Chip and Dan Heath said, beware the life-sucking force of reasonableness.
Right.
Don't be reasonable.
Yep.
Put it on there. And so we did that 20 years ago, and we reviewed it just a few weeks ago. We've done 44 of them.
Oh, wow.
17 no longer apply.
Okay. You're not interested in those 17 for whatever reason?
Yeah, so like when we first got married, the idea of homeschooling wasn't even a thing. So we wanted our kids to go to MBA, Montgomery Bell Academy, and Harpeth Hall if we had girls. It just no longer applies.
I see.
So we strike through those. So 44 have been done, 17 no longer apply, and the rest we have to do. The 17, Bonnie and I are going to be sitting down soon, and we're going to be replacing those. We still are going to keep them on the list with a strike through so we can see how our lives have changed.
Right.
But there's little bitty things on there that we've been able to accomplish. And one of them was to have, back to your question, was to have a library. And so we have a 4-bedroom house, and the kids are upstairs. They have their whole deal upstairs, 2 gigantic bedrooms with a bathroom, and we don't have to go up there and mess with them. So we got 2 girls, 2 boys that are left at home. Boom, everything's good. So that second bedroom, that 4th bedroom is downstairs. So it's an office.
Okay.
And I built some shelves and stuff, and I mean it's card cataloged.
Nice.
We're that big of nerds.
How many books would you say? Roughly?
I don't know, a couple thousand.
Couple thousand?
Yeah.
You own all these books?
Yeah. These are books we own.
Wow. Did you do a mass buy at one time, a bulk buy?
No, we've this has been a way of life for years. And we still go to the library. We'll get, I don't know, we go to the library about once every week, once every 2 weeks. We'll get 100 books.
You'll get 100 books once every couple of weeks?
Yeah.
For the whole family?
Yeah, and just rip through them. Yeah, we're voracious.
This is in addition to the couple thousand books in the library.
That's right.
In your personal library.
And then we have a bookshelf in our room, a nice bookshelf that we acquired. And I have the bottom 3 shelves. Bonnie's got the top 3 shelves. Those are books that we've bought and haven't read yet.
Okay.
So when I'm looking for a book that I'm going to read, I don't go to the library. Those have been read. By at least me. This is my deal.
Okay.
So I finished a book yesterday. I started a new one today. And so I went to my bedroom and got it off of the has not been read yet shelf.
Okay, gotcha.
And so I'll mix them up.
So do you, and not to drill in too deep here, but it's fascinating. So if you have a book that you know you want to read at some point, you'll buy it.
Absolutely.
And you may not read it for another year.
That's correct.
So just buying the book is almost a book list of sorts.
Absolutely.
And then do you also have a list where you're going to write down some books that maybe you're not going to buy right now, but you'd be fascinated in
I keep
reading?
those on my phone. Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
If I'm somewhere and I see one, I'll take a picture of it.
Okay.
And then go back to my little Google, Keep or Google notes or whatever. And I've got a books to read list in there, movies to watch list.
Sure.
Something like that.
Well, when is the family reading? Are you reading in the morning and in the evening, or just in the evening?
There's no set time to read. It's just a way of life.
Okay.
And so typically the schedule goes like this. Bonnie's a later sleeper than I am, and the family's a later sleeper than I am. I'm an early riser. And so what'll happen is I get up early. The house is still quiet and asleep. I read my Bible first, which is another cool journey in my Bible reading. And then I will pray and all that stuff. Have my time.
What time might this be?
Typically around 6:30.
Okay.
Around 6:30. I'm not one of these guys that gets up at 4:21. There's not. I mean,
me neither,
if you
man.
do that, God bless you. I
tried for years.
I
to
knew
get
you
up
did
at
for a while.
4:45, and then I tried to get at 5 a.m.
Yeah,
I'll be honest with you, man. I could never make it stick. And there's part of me that still feels like, dude, come on, get it together, get up at 5. But I'm starting to make peace with it. At 35 now, I'm starting to like, no, it's okay.
You're okay. You're all right.
Right.
The key is this: are you wasting? It's not necessarily about the amount of time that you're awake. It's what you're doing with it while you're there.
Yeah.
And so, when it's quiet in the house, I can concentrate. I sit at my office, which is in my library. It's the quietest room in the house because it's got all the books, thick carpet. It's on the edge of the house.
Oh, I love that, man.
The sound in there is dead.
That sounds fantastic.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. And I love playing my trumpet in there. It's just.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, because it's a dead room and you want to play in a dead room to practice. You want to practice in a dead room. You want to perform in a live room.
Okay.
And so it's the same thing. And so I'll get up and I'll read through my Bible and then I'll pray and all that stuff. And then I will usually start on my book. I'm sharpest in the morning. My best thinking is done from 6 to 9. My best thinking. And after that, it is a slow, gradual slide down all day. But my synapses are on fire in the morning. Here's the problem. This is where marriage comes in. Learning about your marriage. My spouse is a quiet, let me get into the day slowly.
Right.
I am bouncing off the walls at 7 o'clock in the morning with just all these ideas. And I've had to learn, shut your mouth.
Right. You're annoying.
I'm annoying.
Yeah.
Let her ease into the day. She cares about it, but she doesn't care about it right now.
Right.
She cares about it,
Important
just not right
distinction,
now.
right?
That's right. And so so I'll read, and then slowly the family will wake up. Usually my youngest son. The younger kids are always the early risers,
Okay.
and as they get older, their sleep times will go a little later.
Yep.
And so he and I will usually eat breakfast together, something like that, and then the family starts to wake up and rise. And then I'll cook breakfast. Bonnie will cook breakfast, or it's breakfast on your own. We work off of a menu. We do a weekly menu.
Oh, okay.
That makes it easy to figure out what's going on, and you're buying for 6 people,
Right.
save money,
Interesting.
stuff like that.
Yep.
And we love to cook. So we'll do a menu and whatnot. And then usually between 8 and 9, somewhere in there, we're not super picky, but we keep our eyes on it. And if it starts ticking up later than that, then we start, beating it down a little bit. But between 8 and 9, everybody together at the table. We have a 10-foot, almost 11-foot table in our dining room, and it can seat 15 people comfortably. So everybody can spread out, and then we read the Bible together. And so right now we're in Samuel. We'll read one chapter of the Bible and all of the notes that go with it. And then I ask simple questions. What's your takeaway? What did you get from this? Sometimes it's a little more difficult than others. You know
Right,
that.
right.
Then we will read the proverb of the day together, and then we pray as a family.
A chapter in Proverbs.
One chapter.
One chapter.
And then the proverb of the day. So
Okay.
if it's the 18th of the month, we
Sure.
read Proverbs 18.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Are there days we miss? Yes. Do we freak out about it? Absolutely not. And there was a time we did. We just felt that anxiety of I missed, I'm behind. No, you're not. Just pick up where you left off and keep rocking and rolling.
Right.
And don't worry about it. You're going to be fine.
Yep.
And so getting comfortable with that is taking a while. So we do that. And then we start school. We are not these formal homeschooling people like a lot of homeschooler parents are. They basically took classroom school and just put it in their home. We don't do that.
Okay.
We don't do that. A lot of our kids are self-guided. We know our kids. That's where that whole fair and equal thing, that's knowing your children. So my 16-year-old, he is way smarter than me and Bonnie, and he knows it, and we know it. He is very smart. He is intelligent as all get out. And what's interesting about him, he's also wise. And I love that about him. He's not just intelligent. He knows how to take something over here and apply it over here.
Yeah.
He's taught me a lot of stuff. This is the kid at 9 years old. I'm cutting my pancakes one at a time. He goes, Dad, why don't you just stack the 3 pancakes on top of each other and just cut?
Yeah.
Boom, my mind was blown. I'm like,
Never been
I've
the
been eating
same.
pancakes for
Right.
40 years, 40 years, and now you're teaching me. So anyway, just a smart guy. And so he is, he doesn't just do his own stuff. We know what he's doing. We're monitoring it and looking at it, but he's way more self-guided.
Right.
Because he has the mentality, he has the discipline. He can sit down and do what would be 3 weeks of physics in one afternoon.
Wow.
Because he just gets it.
Yep.
And so that's how he works.
Yep.
Well, then our next kid, the redhead, she doesn't like math. So we have to give some extra time and attention and effort on math. But she just kills it in the arts. Anything that's got to do with drawing, creativity. She loves, she doesn't like the mechanics of English, but the other stuff that goes along with, literature. So all of our kids are unique.
Yep.
And so their curriculum, if you will, is tailored to their likes, their desires, their strengths. They all get Bible. They all get math. That is non-negotiable. But the rest of the stuff, we can push it harder and tailor it back based on what they love.
I see. Are you using a particular curriculum?
No, we don't.
Oh, fascinating.
And that's taken years, and my wife gets 150% of the credit on that. We tried. We've tried so many things over the years, and what we have learned is your kids, you know what their bent is.
Interesting.
Work with that.
Yep.
So for the math, we do use Life of Fred. It tends to work really well to give a solid base. I wish I wonder how good I would have been at math had I had Life of Fred math when I was a kid, because I just didn't get math. I just didn't get it. I get simple math like percentages, and I can do regular, just simple calculations very quickly in my head. But once you put a number, a letter where a number goes,
Right.
boom, Rick's gone.
Yep,
You
yep.
know, I mean, I'm like, I'm out. You just lost me right
Yep,
there.
yep.
And so I sit down with my kids, and we got to play the video to teach them that thing. And it's like I'm learning all this stuff, and I'm like, man, I haven't done this in years.
I can see where that'd be really beneficial for you.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
And my wife's had to teach this stuff now like 47 times because we've got all these kids.
Right.
And so
Yeah.
she's just next level.
Yep.
And so that's what we do. We work with them. You know, we don't have the TV going. We encourage them. We have a piano, play. Well, they're just banging around. Well, first of all, they know not to be hard on it, hard on the piano, but they just pick stuff out. Great. Well, it's kind of annoying. They're not getting that note right, but they'll figure it out. Let them. They have a keyboard in their room. They can put headphones on and work on stuff. But we don't have. It's not school time.
I see. Interesting.
It is a
it's more of a way of life.
It's a way of life.
Yeah. Yeah. Fascinating.
Yesterday we went hiking. Woke up yesterday, gorgeous. Boom, went on the 5-mile hike.
Okay. Just from the house, or you drove somewhere?
We drove to a little place about 4 miles from where we are, and it's this lit's path it's 8-mile hike, and we hiked about 2.5 miles in, 2.5 miles out.
What are you looking for personally with your reading? I mean, you have read a ton of books. Are you looking to keep your mind sharp? Are you looking to do new things? Are you looking to pass the time? I
definitely don't read just to pass the time. I read because I am a very curious human being. I'm starting a book this morning called The Millionaire and the Bard. And it's about Henry Clay Folger, the heir of the Folger empire. And he was trying to hunt down Shakespeare's first folio. Actual Shakespeare, there's a thing called the first folio. And he spends his life hunting this thing down.
What is that, the first folio?
It was all of his works.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's now at the Library of Congress.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing, or maybe the National Archives. But I mean, so I saw this book years ago in something, and I went, that sounds like it'd be interesting. I took a picture of it, put it on my list. Bought it. It went on that shelf. It went on the bookshelf to read. I just finished 3 business books back to back. I read Decisive by Chip and Dan Heath. After that, I read The Wisdom of Crowds, which was very, very insightful. And then I read Brilliant Mistakes by Paul Shoemaker. I just finished it yesterday. And so this morning I said, I've done 3 business books in a row. I want to take a break from that, and I want to shift gears and do something that's more of a biography or something different.
Yep. So you're reading a variety of
Absolutely.
types of books.
Absolutely.
And are you a speed reader?
No, I am slow as a. My
I'm
wife
so
laughs
slow
at this.
when I read.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a funny thing. And my wife, we were talking about this last week, and she said, "I cannot believe this is the case. When I read a book, I read it in my head exactly the way it would sound if I read it aloud. There is no difference.
How else would you do it?
See, my wife doesn't. She reads chunks. She sees chunks in a book and can fly through a book. I don't see how she does it.
I think I must read as you would read aloud, because
That's how
this
I
whole
read.
thing of reading chunks, I don't know how you would do that.
She reads, and she can just look at a sentence and see 3 or 4 words, go to the next sentence, the next.
Right.
It's insane.
Okay.
And so she can finish a book in a fraction of the time it takes me to read it. And she still has a good retention.
Okay.
But my retention tends to be very, very high.
Really?
Because I read it just the way an Audible book.
Right.
If I'm reading a book, that's exactly
you
the way
marking it
sounds.
up?
Oh, I mark like crazy.
Yeah, I mark like
With
crazy too.
Pencil, not pen.
Pencil, huh?
Yeah.
Why?
And I've just started doing that in the last few years. Actually, I was at the Library of Congress. I was at the Library of Congress, and I asked them, modern day books, if you're going to write in a modern day book, what lasts the longest? And she said, a number 2 pencil will last for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
I don't believe it.
It does.
A number 2 pencil
Yes,
will last
a simple
longer
than a pen. Because those are chemicals, and they will weaken over time.
Really?
Over time, they will get. You ever seen a highlighter? You highlight a page. You
Right,
ever seen
I've
a
seen
highlighter?
that.
A 20-year-old book, you can barely see where you highlighted.
Yeah, this makes me curious, because both my
pencil.
pastors use a pencil
Yes.
for their, whether taking a note in an elders meeting or whether
Yes.
they're writing in. And you don't see pencils anymore.
No, they're
I'm
amazing.
partial. I mean, this is a pen that I get on Amazon, but it's the only pen I've used this for a couple years now.
Yes.
It's a 0.5, I don't know, whatever the tip is. Was that meters or something, or millimeters? I have no idea, but it's 0.5. It's blue.
Yeah.
Ballpoint pen, Uniball, Signo, and like I have a stock of these in these drawers because this is all I use. So I use pens and everything and I like to buy books. I used to go to the library and read them, but then you can't mark them up.
That's right.
And I like to have, I don't have many, but I like to have them here to reference. That's right. One thing that changed for me in the last few years was starting to reference books more. But I can't imagine using a pencil.
Oh, they're
amazing. It
just
seems antiquated.
They're fantastic. You can either use a Ticonderoga. They're actually made in Tennessee, I believe. And it's a real nice pencil. It's just, you can get a box of them at Staples or somewhere like that. They sharpen real well.
A mechanical pencil?
I use a mechanical. I use the old kind that you turn and they come up. And it looks kind of like a pencil. And I use those and I put those in my book. That's my bookmark. Okay. And I also dog ear. I'm a dog ear.
Right,
guy.
I am too, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But so if I'm reading something and like it's a quote or something, oftentimes I will put that quote in my quote file. I've got a quote file on my phone. But if it's an interesting story or an anecdote or something that I can put, I will say, amazing story. Or I will write in there, at least at this time, how it applies to something that's going on in my life right now.
Oh, interesting.
Which that is a time, that's like a time capsule.
Right.
So you read a book 8 years later and you go back to reference it or reread it. And you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot about that. You know, and it's,
yep. There's almost an element of journaling a little bit if you're doing that, which is really cool.
And so then if I disagree with something, it's not uncommon for me to write bull crap in there.
Right.
Like that.
Fascinating. I find myself rereading sentences often, sometimes paragraphs, so I realize my mind's starting to wander and I don't get it. Because when I start missing sentences or paragraphs, I got to get back in there and like really start over, read that again, get back into the book. If my mind starts to wander, now I'm just wasting time.
That's exactly right.
Fascinating.
Yeah, but I'm a slow reader. Your question was, am I slow? I'm slow. I mean, I read it the way Audible would. So how you hear an Audible book is how I read it when I open it up. And my wife just thinks it's so fascinating. She goes, you read every and, the, but, if, or? I said,
100%.
And if there's a comma, I pause the way you would. She's like, I said, in my head, it is a narrative. It's a narration in my head.
Yes.
She's like, that's fascinating.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly how I read too.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned there's going to be consequences for the $2.2 trillion. I mean, it seems like there has to be, right? I mean, and yet we're so disconnected from the gold standard, because inflation was supposed to be so much more rampant after 08, 09 bailout. And then it never got quite as rampant as they thought it would be. But this is $2.2 trillion. This is more.
Yes, babe.
What are the negative consequences that you see that we might experience?
You just can't keep printing money. At some point, it's going to be so devalued. It says on there, if you look at a note, this is legal tender backed by the full faith of the United States government. That's the only thing that makes money worth anything.
Right.
That's what makes paper money worth anything. When we used to have bartering, well, you've got onions, I've got corn, I need onions, you need corn. Hey, I got an idea. Well, I grow strawberries and I have a leaky roof and you're a roofer. I got an idea. Bub, how would you like some strawberries? I'd love some. Will you fix my roof?
Yep.
Neither of us exchange money. When a legal note became the medium of exchange, it's only worth what we feel that it's worth. Honus Wagner is supposed to be the most valuable baseball card in history. I wouldn't pay $3 million for a card. Well, you don't have to. Somebody else will if they feel that it's worth it. It is just a piece of paper. It's cardboard. It's just a piece of paper with an image on it. So why is it worth $3 million to somebody? Because it is. And that's what they're willing to pay. As long as there's faith that money will be there, then I don't think we have a problem. But when you have a crisis of confidence, that's when we're going to find ourselves in trouble. That's when we're going to find ourselves in trouble.
And what happens then? The American society or the society at large is saying this paper money is just not worth much anymore. So I'm going to, what happens at that point? I'm going to take the stuff out of your store instead of pay you money. Does this turn into an uprising?
I think it could be just super hyperinflation.
Okay.
One of the things that you've seen in other countries where it's just, a loaf of, you have to spend your money immediately because that loaf of bread will be, it'll be $55 tomorrow for a loaf of bread. And it gets me tickled when somebody goes, that'll never happen. Oh, be real careful with the word never.
Well, that type
If
of thing
I told
happens.
you 90 days ago, oh, no, the country will be shut down on lockdown. And you go, well, what do you mean?
Right.
Oh, no, there's going to be this disease from China for some bat or something, and it's going to lock the world down.
Yep.
You would look at me like my head was on fire.
Yep. Yeah.
We got to be very careful using the word never.
Well, I mean, but so this is where I come back to is that inflation stuff. It happens all the time. I mean, it's happened in other countries.
That's right.
But it was also supposed to happen more like that after the 08-09 bailout,
Right.
and it just didn't quite ever get to that point. So what happened to keep that inflation somewhat down? I'm sure there's ways the feds, is it the feds that handle this? They would make moves to not let it get out of control. Is that what they're going to try to do this time again?
I guess.
Okay.
I don't have a crystal ball, so if I did, I probably wouldn't be sitting here. I
Yeah.
like you, but
Yeah.
if I could predict the future, I'd probably
You'd
be
have
doing
better
some
things to
other
do for sure.
No, this is
Probably
a
had
blast.
better things to do anyway.
No, man,
Let's
this
be
is
honest.
cool. I was like, wait a second. He called me and asked me to be on that. And he must be scraping the bottom of the barrel. He called me. Man, he's run out of choices. He's like, man, the 8 people we had lined up have all canceled. Call Rick. And
Let's
see if
get
he can
Rick
come.
on here.
That's it.
That's not true.
Oh, that's funny.
How would you have handled the situation when you say not sure that shutting down the economy was the right response?
Okay, again, we live life forward and we review life backwards through a rearview mirror. So it's very easy for me to sit here and say that. You know, my 16-year-old was laughing the other day. He's like, it's like the really big, gigantic, fat guy sitting there eating a drumstick, and he yells at the TV when the quarterback throws a wrong pass, and he goes, "Hey!" And he
Right.
yells at it with his chicken
Dripping
drumstick,
off the drumstick.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Seriously, dude.
Right.
You know,
Yep.
do you realize you wouldn't last 3 seconds on this gridiron?
Yep.
And so it's real easy for me to sit here and say what I would or wouldn't do. I could not imagine. I don't care if you love Trump or hate Trump. I don't care. Obama, I couldn't imagine being the president during something like this
I
when
agree.
your
I agree.
advisors are going,
I agree.
listen to me, if this is the one.
Right.
Trump is surrounded by it. So you have to filter information. Wait a second. So this guy's got 3 PhDs and he's got 2 MDs and this guy's got 7. So number one, I recognize they're smarter, wiser, at least in their fields. And I'm the guy that's got to make the decision.
Right.
Okay, what am I going to make my decision based on? I've got to make it based on the information that I'm given. I have to make it on the. I'm not an epidemiologist.
Right.
I can't even say that word.
Yeah.
You know? I don't deal with epidemics. I don't have a degree in that stuff. I haven't spent 40 years in academia or in the research world in a laboratory in petri dishes dealing with all this stuff.
Yep.
I don't know. So I have to. So based on the information I'm giving, these are the things I have to do. So what's the first thing you do? Well, you get your advisors, and then I want people in the room that disagree with them. Team of Rivals is a fantastic book. If you've never read it, I highly recommend it. Lincoln wanted people in his cabinet that he disagreed with because he wanted the other side. Love Lincoln, hate Lincoln, and he did some things that are terrifying with the Constitution. I mean, he just spit in its face. Yeah, I mean, suspended the writ of habeas corpus. You can't do that. He did it. And he said, what are you going to do? You know, he would lock journalists up. He would do those kind of things. It was amazing. But one of the things that he did that I appreciated is he would have people in his cabinet that absolutely hated him. They disagreed with each other.
Okay.
Because he wanted to hear both sides.
Right.
And so if I've got this Bricks lady and I've got this Fauci or whatever his name is, and I got all these guys saying, this is going to be the biggest tidal wave of anything you've ever seen. I want to hear from the other side. I want to hear from some people that say, hey, listen, they could be right, but you need to consider this.
Yeah.
Now, some people would say, no, look, that's too much. I wouldn't be able to make a decision if that happened. I want that.
Right.
I want these people working it out because I'm going to throw some questions. You know, my whole deal is ask great questions. That's my whole deal. I love to ask great questions. So I'm going to start asking them questions. And I'm just going to lob mind grenades at them over and over. And I want these two people fighting it out. I want them to fight each other about, you're saying that we don't need to lock everything down, but we need to do X, Y, Z. You're saying it's all out, iron fisted. This is, the Middle Ages.
Right.
And then maybe the answer's somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
But ultimately, you've got to make that decision. Now, and then this is the interesting thing, and regardless if it's a Democrat or a Republican in the office, I don't think we give people credit enough to realize that they have to change streams sometimes. I'm making the information based on I'm making this decision based on the information I have right now.
Right.
Oh my goodness, the data points just changed.
Yep.
That means I have to pivot.
Yes.
Wait a second. You said
Exactly.
I said that when I had that information.
That's right. Yeah.
Now the information has changed.
Yeah. I've heard Elon Musk is really good at that. He'll make a decision, and at some point thereafter, if it needs to change, then he's been asked before, like, well, what do you do? Well, you just decide to change it.
Well, yeah.
Just change. Which I really like that because I think some people do have that perception where, oh man, there's a weight to this decision, and a lot of decisions are very weighty, and some have long consequences that last a while. But you can make a decision, and most of the time, if you had it wrong, you just change it and move on.
One of my favorite movies, it's definitely top 10, and it's an off-the-cuff movie, and it's actually not produced by a large studio. It's called Ike, Countdown to D-Day. And believe it or not, it stars Tom Selleck as Eisenhower. This is not a war movie. I don't think there's a single bullet that's fired in the movie. But there's not. It is about the decisions leading up to him saying, go.
Oh, fascinating.
It is riveting. Absolutely riveting. And he says to one of his, he says, no. He goes, it's the little things that weigh on you. He goes, you can decide to invade, Germany tomorrow. You can do that over breakfast. He goes, it's the little things that weigh over you. But watching how the movie unfolded, I absolutely loved it. He's got all of these people. They all have agendas. They have advisors. They've got all of these things. And he is about to unleash the largest amphibious assault in the history of the planet. And it is on his shoulders. His advisors are telling him that the paratroopers, there's going to be 70% casualties.
Oh,
7 out of 10. But they have to get behind the enemy lines. That's why those drops were so important. He knows that 7 out of 10 of those young men are going to die.
Right.
But he has to do it. He's got this weather guy telling him there's going to be a break. Because I can't recall this thing once I launch it, baby. It's we have to move forward.
Yep. And
he's got his advisors telling him, no, the tanks, the sand is not sand. It's actually small rocks. It will hold the weight of these. That was his biggest concern.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
As the tanks came on board,
they came on board, they would just sink in
the sand.
Yeah. So not only would they kill the people inside of them, we would no longer have the equipment.
Right.
And then it would block up the beaches, and they would be a barrier. Any of these machinery that comes on board.
So that really was a point of no return move.
Absolutely. But at some point, and you think about this now, at some point, he had to say, go.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we got to go to a Truman's Library on the way home from a trip. And there it was in a case with lighting. It's protected. It's in glass. It says, the buck stops here. That was the thing he kept on his desk as president.
Oh yeah,
I'm the president.
Just a paper or what
no,
was
it? Was
it
like
engraving?
It was like a nameplate. Like if you on your desk, it would say Kent Lapp, Esquire or whatever.
The buck stops here.
The buck stops here. It was an actual thing,
Yeah.
And Truman, you didn't know anything about the Manhattan Project that we know of as vice president. FDR dies. They say, "Come here, Hoss.
Yeah,
we need to tell you something."
Yeah.
And so what does he do? He sits down with his advisors. He says, "Well, what? Okay, where are we? Well, Europe's done. Now we're in the Pacific Theater. What's going to happen? Well, the next step is an invasion of mainland Japan. What are my estimates? Well, 500,000 U.S. soldiers. We had already lost 500,000. We'd already lost 500,000. And you're telling me another 500,000.
Jeepers.
Yeah.
Numbers are crazy.
And then they say, listen, and we believe that it will cost a million Japanese lives. Did you know we have these things called bombs? You didn't know about them, but we need to tell you. Well, what are they? How do they work? And they fill him in. They said, listen, you're going to unleash hell. You're going to incinerate 150,000 people in one fell swoop. But you will bring this war to an end. And they asked him, did you ever regret that? He said, not at all. I had a decision I had to make.
Yeah. Well, and to make a decision like that, you have a clear sense deep in your gut that this matters. There is good and there is evil.
Right.
And you got to make a move.
Right.
Or that evil is going to take over.
Right. And in this case, evil can be substituted with this coronavirus. We're looking at it now with a month or two behind our belt. We're looking back in the rearview mirror. So it's real easy to say this person did a good job or didn't do a good job or this. We could guess. I mean, look at what we did during the 2008 crisis. We had a credit. The problem with 2008 is we didn't have any credit. The financial markets just seized up. I mean, like an engine with zero oil in it. Just boom. One day there's money. The next day there's not. We didn't have that problem here.
That's a good
there
point.
is liquidity. There is liquidity. And you have to remember this. This was not just a good economy. This was the most red hot economy that we've ever had by the numbers in the history of our country.
You think Trump had a lot to do with that?
Yeah. One of the things he did more than anything, well, he did several things. Confidence. He's a positive guy, actually. He's a pretty positive. Hey, it's going to be okay, y'all. I mean, that's kind of a Trump thing. It's going to be okay. And if you feel confident, you'll take that vacation.
Right.
You'll expand your business. You will buy the second car.
Yep.
You know what? We've been wanting to put a sunroom on the house. Job's doing good. Economy's humming right along.
Right.
I think I can do that.
Yes.
If you have a sense of pessimism, then everything contracts. Everything contracts, and we hang tight for a bit. You know. And so one of the things he does, he just instills a sense of, I don't know, positiveness.
Right.
Now, yes, he's petty. Yes, he makes
Sure.
fun of people and calls them, Rosie O'Donnell and all that stuff. He does all that. And that's childish. We'll just say what it is.
Yep.
Funny, but childish.
Right.
Inappropriate? Sure. For the president of the United States? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's funny, and it is who he is. But when if you actually look at what he does, so then he gets in there and he starts cutting red tape. He starts cutting regulations. He says to all of his agencies, if you're going to add one new regulation, you got to cut two. For every new regulation you want to add, you got to take two off the books. And then he starts doing that. Then he starts appointing judges that have, what do they call it? Oh, common sense. And he starts loading the courts with judges that have common sense and believe in individual liberties, believe in individual rights. All of a sudden, what happens is people start going, okay, I've been wanting to start a bakery, but I was terrified to do it. I feel confident in taking a loan now. So all of a sudden, she starts a bakery. What happens when she starts a bakery? She's got to hire people. So she goes out and she hires people, and now they got a job. When they have a job, here's the interesting thing about it. They pay taxes on their money.
Yep.
Oh, how about that?
Yep.
So your tax revenues are better.
Yep.
Right? So then all of a sudden, hey, then that nasty house, that nasty building next to it, it starts getting refurbed.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, investment opportunity, then capital opportunity, and then other companies. Then you go and you push through Congress to have the tax cut. And I mean, think about that. 33% is what it was before. Was it 33 or 35? And then it went down to 20.
Yeah.
Can you imagine you're a multi-billion?
Massive.
Oh my goodness. And all of a sudden you've been thinking about putting a new plant somewhere. You've been thinking about upgrading your you've been thinking about doing a stock buyback to help your shareholders. And you're sitting on $28 million
Yep.
from a cut. You didn't do anything different, by the way.
Right.
You kept doing the same thing, and all of a sudden, boom, it's $28 million more in your coffers than there used to be. Now, some people would say, that needs to go straight to the workers. I could agree that you could probably give the deserving workers more. But that whole fair and equal thing, I got a big problem with that. Just because we got more money doesn't mean you're going to get it.
Sure.
How about we expand our business? And let's go hire more people. How about we do some stock buybacks to make our stock more valuable? Let's employ this money. I got a weird one. This is a big one right here. This is crazy. How about we actually put retained earnings back?
Right.
And be ready for something crazy like, I don't know, the Wuhan.
Right.
The coronavirus.
The Chinese virus.
The Chinese Wuhan virus. What did somebody call it? The bat, what did they call it? The Kung flu?
The Kung flu.
I heard that one. I heard panda sniffles. I heard that one.
Oh, yeah. Speaking of business, I'm curious what have you learned in the last couple of years in business? I'm just curious. You got into an industry that you'd not gotten into before, selling peaches.
That's right.
You're not selling peaches anymore, right?
No, I've retired.
But you sold a ton of peaches.
Sold a ton of peaches, yeah.
And so I know that was kind of one of your more recent endeavors, but you're always learning. I'm curious what what worked in that business or what didn't, or what are you learning and what have you learned in business?
That's a great question, actually. I have learned, if you look at my LinkedIn page, it kind of has a little blurb about it. People, processes, and products. You have to have all three to have success in a business. And it doesn't matter what the business is. It does not matter. It is irrelevant what the business is. Well, we're a bioengineering firm and we do biomedical stuff, so we don't really need good people. Wrong.
Right.
Well, we have great processes. We don't need good people. Wrong. We have the best salespeople in the world. Yeah, but your product sucks. You have to have the three: processes, people, and products. And when you can have those three meld together, when you can have those three working in unison, it doesn't matter what you do, whether it's a LASIK eye center, which I've done that before, whether it's orthopedics, which I've done that before, whether it's the housing industry, which I've done that before, the financial industry, I've done that before, and I've sold peaches.
Yep.
And so what happens is I see, and it's that teacher in me, I see business through the lens of people. There are some business folks that are great with spreadsheets. And as we say in the South, bless your heart. Their entire business world runs through a spreadsheet. Now listen, spreadsheets have a place, they're important, and they do make a difference. You need to know your numbers. You need to understand that. But every time you have a cell on a spreadsheet and it has related to a human being, it's beside a name. If you're number 4 on my, and it says Kent Lapp, that's a human being attached to that.
Sure.
It's not cell B4.
Right. Yep.
It's Kent Lapp. Kent's a human being. Kent's got a wife. He's got kids. He's got desires, aspirations, fears. He's got strengths, weaknesses. He's a human being. And when you and this may be one of my faults in business. My wife says it's my greatest strength, and sometimes I have to guard myself and say, is it a big weakness for me? That it can't be about just a spreadsheet. That it's a human being, and so I want to find a way that they can exist, a way that they can exist together. That human being and that spreadsheet can coalesce. I understand. Look, this thing has knocked out some people. This COVID thing has absolutely crushed some businesses. And you cut hard, you cut deep, you cut fast. That's what you got to do. And I understand. Part of that means Sally's going to have to be fired.
Sure. Or
furloughed or whatever word you need to use.
Right.
I get it. And Sally's still a human being. And Sally, our revenues are going to drop in half in 1 month. I'm just trying to keep the doors open so the ship doesn't sink. Unfortunately, I got to throw you over. Now, I do have this little bitty floaty. So God bless you. Here's the floaty. Boom, you're off the boat. I'm sorry. But I don't want the entire ship to go down and take down all 200 of my employees.
Yep.
So I have learned, and this is a unique thing. But the businesses that don't have debt, the businesses that were sitting on capital, and I don't mean a credit line. I mean cold, hard cash.
Right. Imagine that.
They are killing it right now. They're killing it. I advise a company right now. They're down 57% in revenue.
Gross revenue, they're down 57%?
57%. 57%. They cut hard.
But they're doing all right?
They're doing fine. They're going to be just fine because they're a debt-free company. They're a multi-million-dollar debt-free company, and they had retained earnings, a big old fat chunk of retained earnings, because times have been very good for the last few years.
Yes.
Now, they didn't know what was going to hit.
Right.
What was it Buffett? Warren Buffett always says that when other people are greedy, be fearful. And when other people are fearful, be greedy. Well, that doesn't just apply to stocks. It also applies to your business. When you're killing it out there, you need to be terrified. And I mean that not in terms of not be bold and expand, but I mean that in terms of savings and watching your P's and Q's and putting money back and those type of things. So your question was, what have I learned in business? I'm always learning. I know that the more I learn, the less I actually know. I know that sounds so counterintuitive. I realize how little I actually know the more I learn. But I've learned that it takes people, processes, and products to make it work.
Are you moving into a season where you're going to be doing more consulting?
Yeah, a lot more.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Small businesses, particular industries, who are you looking to help?
I don't care.
Really?
People who want to be able to put people, products, and processes together. If you need somebody that's a super duper high level engineering, blah, 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 that has an engineering background, I'm not your guy. That's not what I do.
Yep.
But if you need somebody that knows how to build teams, if you need somebody that can help other people communicate. I love this story. This is a great story about communicating. All of the animals at the zoo said, we're going to have a meeting at sundown. So they're all together. And the giraffe shows up 15 minutes late. And the lion looks at him. He says, dude, you're 15 minutes late. We said to be here at sundown. And he said, I can still see the sun. Right? Is that not the greatest parable about communication?
I've never heard that one.
It's about communication, right?
It's a good point.
It's about communication.
Yeah, because what was said was not what was heard.
That's exactly.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it was heard. It was heard. You weren't clear.
Right.
You said when the sun's down. I came when the sun went down. But my neck is 17 feet tall.
Right.
I can still see the sun.
Yeah.
So you should have said, we're going to meet here at 8 o'clock.
Right.
Or we're going to meet here at whatever. You weren't specific as the person given the instructions. They heard you.
Yep.
And they actually followed your instructions.
Yep.
You didn't consider that other factor as the leader.
Yeah, it's a great point. Are you going to work with companies only in person, or if people are listening in another state and they're looking for some help? Would you do it virtually? Or
more than welcome to do that.
Okay.
What I'm not looking for, I don't want to do a super duper long project that's multi-year and I'm flying out to Phoenix once a month for 36 months and I'm not looking for that. What I'm looking for is somebody that wants a pair of fresh eyes that is not in the weeds of their business.
Yeah.
And my wife accuses me of having professional ADD. And she's right. I love learning new things. And so every industry has a language. I don't care what it is. If it's transportation, there is a language. If it's the building industry, there's a language. If it's industrial versus residential building, there's a language. It doesn't matter what the industry is. It has its own language. And so I like learning the languages, learning about it, and then seeing where I can come in with a fresh perspective or something that's different. Because you're in your industry every day, all day. And you can't see some of your blind spots.
Yep.
And so I come in like one of them little fisheye mirrors that you put on your car and go, hey, I can see this over here.
Yep.
Or something simple. My whole deal is ask great questions. I mean, like that's everything that I ask questions. Well, okay, well, why? Well, why do you do it this way? I think we've told the ham story all the time about cutting the end off the ham. You've heard that one, I think,
a lot of people here haven't though, so let's hear it.
So, this woman's fixing Thanksgiving dinner and she cuts the end off the ham and she gets ready to put it in the oven and she turns to her mom and she's like, Mom, why do we cut the end off the ham? She goes, well, that's what I always did. My mom taught me. So the grandmother is sitting there and they said, well, Mom, why do we cut the end off that? Granny, why do we cut the end off the ham? She said, well, that's what my mom taught me. So they call the great-grandmother, and she's in this retirement home, and they finally get a hold of her, and they're like, Great-granny, why did you cut the end off the ham? She goes, I had a little oven. It wouldn't fit in there. Right? So 4 generations, they've been cutting the end off of this ham. They never stopped to ask, why did we cut the end off the ham?
Right.
And so in my family, we got these little sayings. That's one of them. Are we cutting the end off the ham? Are we doing something because we've always done it and we don't stop?
Right.
We got we call microwave moments. That's a little thing in the Haley family. Microwave moments. We got our first house. Bonnie and I just got married. Little bitty cute house in East Nashville. Before it was cool.
I was going to say,
this is before it was
probably
cool.
before it was cool.
It's when you didn't stop at stop signs. You just kind of rolled around them, and the police were like, "Yeah, that's good. Keep going." And so we get this little house with $69,000. Isn't that cool? $69,000.
Wow.
My payment was $508 a month. I'll never forget that. And so we will go in and we have this little galley kitchen and there's the stove and the refrigerator. And I had this microwave cart and I wanted to fit them between the stove and the refrigerator and they wouldn't go. So we put it in the corner of the dining room, which is it's a little eat-in kitchen. So if you wanted to cook something in the microwave, you got to walk all the way across it, right?
Yeah.
So about 6 months later, I come home one day from work and I look and there's the microwave between the stove and the refrigerator. I look at my wife. I'm like, hey, you moved it. She goes, sure. I go, what did you do? She goes, I scooted the stove over about 2 inches. Right? Isn't that insane?
What was the takeaway? You just missed something that was so obvious, so easy.
Obvious in
someone just needed to try.
That's it.
Yeah.
That was a life-altering moment. Something so simple and insignificant with an $89 appliance.
Yes.
But it was amazing. She just scooted the stove over 2 inches, not 2 feet, just 2 inches. And that table, that little cart slid right in there. The microwave was there. And we immediately got the significance of that.
Yeah.
Immediately. And our whole marriage, we've been saying, that was a microwave moment.
Well, that's pattern recognition. That's what you were talking about earlier. About
That's right.
Here's a truth or here's a principle, and you can use it and apply it over here, because some people would think, oh, that's sort of funny, that's sort of silly.
Right.
You just missed the refrigerator. Well, no, it's actually, there's a principle in there that you can really pay attention to.
Well, and another thing, consulting. When you think of consultants, they wear their suits and they come in and they're MBAs from Harvard. I don't have all that. I've got a bachelor's degree from MTSU, but I have run some multi-million-dollar businesses, and I've built some big ones. I've built some very successful teams, and I'm proud of that. But here's the thing, I'm always learning. And one of the ways that I tend to serve a lot of the companies that I've been working with lately, I've been working with the leaders. Leadership is very lonely. It's very lonely. You're supposed to pass negatives up and positives down. Well, if you're at the top, there's nobody to pass them to. And oftentimes leaders, they don't, you shouldn't show weakness, and you don't need to show, you need to show you're human, and you need to show that you have feelings and those type of things. But you've got things you're worried about. You've got things that you're second guessing yourself about. You need things to bounce things off of someone who's, that can kind of get in your grill if they need to and go, hey dude, you're messing up here. This is a bad move right here.
Yep.
I had a friend that a year or two ago made some bad investments, and I told him, and he was mad at me, very mad at me. In fact, he didn't talk to me for a while.
But you weren't wrong.
I wasn't wrong.
Yeah. Well, you loved him enough to say the truth.
I loved him enough to say the truth.
And if you're going to be helping business
That's
leaders
right.
and doing some consulting, you're going to have to be straight with them, because a lot of times
That's right.
a lot of people aren't. The person at the top, like, people don't want to mess up their situation.
That's right.
And so VPs or directors or other people in the organization don't want to mess up their situation, so they're not always.
While we're sitting here, you've got a book, American Icon, over there. I absolutely love the book American Icon. Alan Mulally, he goes to Ford. This is before the meltdown. And his whole deal, and I use this all the time at the companies I work with. The department heads, they have to all come in and give reports. And he needed, green was good, yellow meant caution, but we're not, and then red was bleeding, And he can't get anybody to come in and have red on any of their things. He's like, we're losing billions, but none of you will put red on there. You're so worried about your jobs. You're so worried about looking good. You're so worried about your reputation. I'm not going to fire you, but we need the truth, or this thing is going to go under.
Yeah.
And one person had the guts to come in the next meeting, and they had one little cell on their spreadsheet that was red. And he made a hero out of them for just being honest.
Yep.
The next meeting, it looks like a bloodbath. I mean, there's red everywhere.
Yep.
But somebody needed to know, it's okay. I've got your back, but something's not right.
Yeah.
We're losing too much. It is another great takeaway in that book. No one can answer a simple question. How many vehicles do we make? Not the number. How many different models do we have? Here's the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company in the conference room. He's got scissors and glue and poster boards. And he's trying to figure out one simple question. How many different vehicles do we make? His secretary didn't know, or assistant, whatever word we're supposed to say there. Whatever's politically correct this week.
Right.
His assistant didn't know. None of the department heads knew. None of the managers, the engineers. No one could answer a simple question. How many different models do we have? Think about how ridiculous. It's Ford, for crying out loud. This is a multi-billion-dollar national brand. This is a worldwide brand. Yep. This is a recognized worldwide symbol all over the world. And no one can answer a question that seems so fundamental. I talked to a guy in Texas last year, great business owner. He's been so successful. And I asked him, I said, what is your profit per employee? And it looked like I punched him in the face. He looked at me and he said, I don't know. I said, have you ever thought about that? He goes, no.
Right.
He goes, but I bet you I'll have it in a week.
Yeah. That's a Jim Collins thing. I think I read that in one of his books. When you talk about the languages of the different businesses or industries, I think you'd mentioned, are you just saying that any business has just a few keys of success and what those are and how to talk about those and pay attention, or are you talking about something different?
Well, both.
Languages?
Well, actually both. I think that And this is my takeaway. I could be completely wrong, but my thoughts are that success from one industry to the next is definitely applicable. What works here, the technical stuff might not work, but the ideas of what success means can work from one industry to the next. They are applicable. I was in ophthalmology. Well, how do you apply that to peaches? Well, I actually applied an enormous amount of the things that I learned from ophthalmology in the peach world. Some things to what to do, and some things what not to do. But that was applicable. Now, here's the thing about it. The language is different. So I remember when I was first at the eye center, I had two doctors. One was on one side of me, the other one was on the other. I'm in the middle. And they're having a conversation about an eyeball, an actual surgery that they're doing. It sounded like they were speaking Klingon to me. Every now and then I would catch an if, or they would say and.
And you'd understand
and
that?
I would understand it. I didn't understand anything. But I read. I'm a nerd. I kept reading. I kept learning. I would go in the OR anytime I had a chance to. And this wasn't being paid to go in the OR. I went in to learn, and I would ask a ton of questions. And fortunately, I had a surgeon that loved that I was a nerd and learned. And so he would teach me while he was doing surgery. 6 months later, those two guys are talking. I'm following everything they're saying.
Yes, I see.
I know what part of the eye they're talking about. I know where they're going with this. And maybe every now and then they would throw an acronym or something that might kind of throw me off, but I certainly could follow along.
Yep.
And so if I'm going to be in transportation, well, there's going to be words or phrases in transportations or acronyms I'm going to need to know to have a baseline.
Right.
If I'm in engineering, there's going to be some things. If I'm consulting with an engineering company, I don't have to be a master engineer, but I need to understand a few principles in that industry to understand it.
Yes.
But what I don't have to do is have a PhD in engineering to be able to help consult with an engineering company. I'm going to help them with the people part.
Yes.
I'm going to be able to ask questions like, this guy right here, why doesn't he work with him? And watch the CEO look, I don't know. You ever had those two together? No. Well, why not?
Right. Yeah.
Because my oven was too small and I couldn't get the ham in there, right?
Yes.
And so just being able to look at things differently and to say, this is... So...
Well, that learning by saturation, I think that's actually really key. It sounds like you've always viewed your roles and responsibilities through that lens in the past. And man, with having led a few businesses and teams before too is... just for someone who is wondering if I put in the extra time, if I learn the extra thing, if I, give the extra attention, is it going to be picked up on? Is it going to be worth my time? Is it going to matter? I mean, those things matter. Like you generally pick up on people that are engaged, they're interested, they're here to help. They're looking to make some sacrifices. They're looking to be a team player. They're looking to give it their best. I mean, you tend to notice those people.
Yes.
And even if you do that and don't get noticed, I just feel like you just owe it to your responsibility, whatever it is. Like you owe being present, engaged, open-minded, interested, learn about it and do your best at it. Maybe you won't be there forever, but give it your best shot. Like it's what is expected. It's what the Bible expects of you.
Well, and that's funny you would say that. That's a great segue into, I think that if you have knowledge in your head, useful, applicable knowledge where it can really help people, wisdom, knowledge, which are not the same thing, by the way. But I think as a Christian, as a person, as a child of God, I think you are required. It's selfish to hold it inside your brain.
Right.
If I have something that can help you, now, just like salvation, I can't make you take it. But what good would it do me to read all these books and learn all this stuff and not share it?
Sure. Right.
Well,
Yep.
that's no fun.
Yeah. It would just be a pastime at that point.
Yeah.
It would be...
It's selfish.
Yeah. You'd be keeping a lot of good from the world. No doubt about it.
Yeah. It's a very selfish thing. And so it's like, well, how are you going to benefit? I don't know. How about watching someone succeed? I had somebody give me a chance and pour into me years ago and got to watch me have some success. And to listen to that person nearly cry when they found out that some things had happened on the success path.
Positive things that happened.
Positive things.
And they were instrumental in putting you on this path.
They were instrumental, very instrumental in putting me on that path. That person gets something out of that.
Yeah.
Now, I want to go do the same thing.
Right.
I want to go do the same thing.
It's what I respect about business leaders probably the most is Man, I have met, I can't think of any business leader that I've met personally that didn't care deeply about their people, deeply about opportunities, deeply about growing people. Like they really cared. Someone last week was, I was on the phone with, and they were just, they were kind of frustrated at themselves for not being able to put their business in a situation where they didn't have to lay anyone off. You know what I mean? Like he felt that responsibility. He wanted to keep providing the job.
He felt the
weight of that
Absolutely.
responsibility.
Yeah.
And but I don't think that's often talked about or often really noticed. There's a lot of negative stigmas that can go with leaders and business leaders. And sometimes it's deserved, but at least for the small business leaders out there that I know or haven't come in contact with, they care deeply about their people. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
What about what were you guys doing so well? What were you doing so well at the Peach Truck? Because you guys really crushed it there for a number of years. What did you bring in? What were some of the principles that you brought with you that you kind of followed in your responsibilities over there that seemed to work?
I think with me personally, I won't. What I won't do is I won't speak for the others.
Right.
This is a question directed at me, so I'm going to speak.
Yep, that's
about
what I'm
me.
after.
Everything rises and falls on people. Your business is only good as your people.
Mm-hmm.
If I have the greatest product, with the peaches were wonderful, and great marketing, phenomenal marketing. Peach Truck's a marketing machine. If I don't have good people, I'm toast. Remember I said people, products, and processes.
Mm-hmm.
The people, though, is if you got to have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so my goal in any business is to build what I call a leadership factory. I want to build people to the point where they don't need me. Because I don't have an ego where I need to be needed. You cannot do that if you have an ego.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you need to be needed, then you have an ego.
Right.
So can this guy handle this job without you? I hope. That's what I'm training him for. And the day that he does, and he says, hey, I had this situation and I just took care of it. And I go, tell me about it. And they tell me about it. And they get done, I hug them.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not during COVID,
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
air bump. I hug them. Dude, you just went to another level.
Mm-hmm.
You now went to a level where you did not need me to handle that. I want to keep doing that. I want to keep training people to where eventually I'm not needed at that level.
Yeah.
That I'm kind of a Yoda, a Yoda, just a guide.
Mm-hmm.
And I really do. I see myself like that. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way.
Mm-hmm.
My job is to guide people to get to where they're trying to go.
Well, it comes back to that. You said you're here to be a teacher.
That's it. And it's taken me a while to figure that out. I've always loved teaching. My first grade teacher, Norman Taft, rest his soul, the man was the best school teacher that God has ever put on this earth. He was incredible. And he absolutely ignited my love of learning and history. He was amazing. When I went to his funeral, I looked at his son and I said, your father changed my life forever.
Oh, wow.
And I'm one of thousands of kids. He taught for 40 plus years. They made him retire because he just taught for so long. And he was this gigantic. He was 6'3". Imagine a first grade teacher, a male 6'3" first grade teacher.
6'3" Norman Taft. You don't screw around with that guy. I think you pay attention when he talks, right?
And he was amazing. But he loved us and he taught us and he didn't take any crap off us whatsoever. But man, I learned to write my name because of that guy. I learned to spell because of him. I got interested in American history because of him. I love this country because of the things that he helped to lay the foundations for. And I just knew as a first grader, I love to learn. I love to teach. I used to fake being well so I could go to school. I would fake being well. That's how big of a nerd. And I wasn't a great student. I didn't get straight A's. I was an AB student. AB. I never studied. I didn't study. AB student. I bullcrap my way all the way through school. But I would fake being well so that I could go to school because I hated missing because I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And that foundation was laid my first year, my first grade year. And so when I'm in business and I'm looking at my kids, I'm in business, I'm at my church, any organization that I'm with, how can we take people and make them the engine for what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
It all comes back to that for me.
Yeah.
So specifically with the Peach Truck, which was your question, I'll get back to that. It was about the people. I was very intentional about who I hired. I was very intentional about teaching them what I taught them, and very intentional about holding them to a standard. Here's the standard. I will not move the bar down. It will only go up from here. So the bar is here. You will either rise to it or you will be gone.
Mm-hmm.
That's harsh.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, it's harsh because it has to be that way. You want to be on this team? You want to have some fun with this team? You want to be part of a brotherhood, a band of brothers? Then you're going to rise to this level.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, the bar went up this year. Yeah, absolutely it did because we're not who we were last year.
Right.
We pushed the bar up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's your bench press. Okay. You did a new PR. You got a new personal record. Yes. 351. Excellent. Well, what's it going to be next? Are you just going to sit at 351 and say, I bench press 351? No, next it's 360.
Mm-hmm.
Next it's 370. You're going to continuously push. You know, we break a land speed record. Yay, pop the champagne, drizzle ourselves with champagne, and we cheer.
Yep.
The next day, that guy is back in that car.
Yeah.
What's the next record?
Right. Yep.
That's how we get better as humans. That's how we get further along. And so for me, it's about raising the bar, pushing my guys right up to the edge when they're going to break. I mean, right to the edge. Put their toes right over the edge of the cliff and then just pull them back a little bit.
Mm-hmm. And you're not doing that for 7 days a week, 12 months out of the year either, because your business was a little bit more seasonal,
that
right?
is correct.
So you didn't have time when it was go time. Everyone needed to give it their all.
Yeah, one day was 5, actually, because of the nature of the business and the season. One day on the tour that we did, the Peach Tour that we did, one day was the equivalent of 5 days on a normal business.
Wow.
And so it's so concentrated, and that includes decisions.
Right.
It includes decisions. If we're doing 3 stops in a day to sell peaches, one of those stops is like a day and a half.
Right.
One stop. And it's a 2-hour stop.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can do the math on that.
Yep.
1 10-minute. And so the pressure, it's like a pressure cooker. Well, if I don't hire for and train and teach these people to work together, to trust each other, to be smart, to be wise, to be looking out for different things, we're toast.
Right. Yep. That thing about developing leaders, it's what I respect about Jack Welch the most. Yep. I mean, you see how many CEOs came out from underneath Jack Welch. It's amazing.
His coaching tree is insane.
It's insane. And that has to be, it has to be one of the best ways that he'll be remembered.
Yeah.
Is the other competent, capable leaders, CEOs that came out from underneath his leadership. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah.
As you get into kind of what's next and helping other companies and businesses, what are some of the first things you look for, or what are some of the maybe most common mistakes that you're looking for?
Some of the little bitty fundamentals that they just don't know. And I don't know if it's because they're so I think it's because they're so in the weeds every day doing the thing that they do that they don't have an outsider's perspective to look in and go, well, what about this? Well, we've never thought about that. Well, why haven't you? Well, we've just been so busy doing this thing, and successfully, by the way, that we've never stopped and thought about that. And so I think a big thing is just going in there with a bunch of questions and saying, tell me about your business.
Yeah.
Why did you get in this business?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's your goal?
Yeah. I'm always interested by what the keys to success are, because I think, most businesses have 3 to 5, maybe a complex one have 7, but there's just always like the 3 or 5 most important things to pay attention to in any business, and identifying what those are. And if something gets out of whack, okay, it's fine, but it's not going to be those 3 or 5 or 7 different things.
Right.
There's going to be a lot that we're not going to be perfect at, a lot we can't pay attention to all the time.
Right.
Can't do everything at once, but those 3 or 5 things, like those key things, and just making sure you're always paying attention to those things and doing good at those things.
And I think a lot of businesses this is crazy. I think a lot of businesses, I call it forward momentum. They just keep moving forward, but they don't necessarily understand why. They haven't stopped a moment to just to analyze. They just keep cutting the end off the ham. And they do a great job, by the way. It's a wonderful straight cut. The ham looks beautiful, but they don't stop to go, why? This is a good one. Who are we? What is our objective? Well, we're an engineering firm. I didn't say, what do you do? Who are you? Why? And so there's a lot of companies that cannot answer that simple, fundamental question because it is, by the way, the toughest question to answer. Why? The how?
Right.
Easy.
Yep.
What? Easy.
Yep.
Why? Man, that's difficult. And what will happen is if you have a strong why, I'm a Christian, so I see my world through the lens of a Christian. And so because of that, it helps me know who I am. And when I'm faced with a situation that might be questionable for some people, I just go back to my worldview. My worldview is, this is what I believe. This is why I believe it. And so this is how I'm going to answer this thing. I think a lot of companies don't know what their worldview is. I think they don't know what their why is. I don't think they know what lenses they see the world through. And I think that's an exploratory process. It's a discovery process. It's fun. It is so fun to do that. Does Rick Haley need to come in and help you with budget management? No, that's not. There's people out there to do that kind of stuff. What about, look at the fourth quarter, blah, blah, blah. No. That's not what I do. That's not what I do. There's MBAs out there with spreadsheets and an army of accountants and an army of actuarials, and they can come and crunch numbers with you till the cows come home. God bless them. I'm capable of crunching numbers. It's not what I do. That's
not your best contribution.
That's not my best contribution. My best contribution is asking you questions that you hadn't thought to ask. And then challenging you when you give me the answer that you think you've got.
Yes. Yeah.
And sometimes it might be as simple as you actually have got all your stuff together.
Right.
Sometimes it just might be as simple as you hire Rick. Rick comes out, he asks you a whole bunch of questions, and you are on fire. And I go,
you're good to go.
Keep them up, buddy.
Yeah. If you're not going to be useful, you're not going to stick around, right? Well, certainly. You respect yourself more than that.
That's right. I did that in the financial world. I would sit down with a client. I would do a financial analysis for them, and I would look at it and I would go, Kent, Mariana, you guys are fantastic. You've got the proper kind of life insurance. You have the right amount, and the company you've got it with is actually good. My goodness, you've got your investments in the right place. You're properly allocated, and that's wonderful. I would literally walk away and say, I can't offer you anything you're not doing, and get zero. I only got commission on the things that you sold.
Sure.
I couldn't do anything to help improve their situation.
Well, because you're serving the work at that point.
Right.
You have the work has a dignity, and you're serving the work, and you're not just in it for a paycheck.
That's right.
And so you're willing to be honest with someone and move along and work with someone that you can have a better contribution with, So I think that's honorable.
And that's the way that I do the consulting part. It's not, I live lean.
Yeah.
I live lean. And so I don't have to consult to pay my bills.
Sure. Yep.
That makes a difference. I don't.
Sure.
If somebody hires me to consult with their company, that money is not feeding my children. And so I can walk away from them. I can, it can be a short stint. It can be a long, whatever it needs to be, but I'm not relying on that to feed my kids. And so because of that, there's some freedom in being able to completely tell the truth. And,
totally. What are how are you deploying your capital now? So when you say your income now, it doesn't feed your kids, I'm assuming that's because you put other income to work and now it's making money. Real estate, stock market, what's kind of your mix? Like, how do you like to deploy your capital? Or how have you deployed your capital in the last couple of years?
I listened. For once in my life, I listened to somebody smarter than me. I'm just kidding. I listened to Warren Buffett, who I'm not a disciple of Warren, but he's pretty smart and he's done fairly well for himself. And he says, when people are fearful, like I said earlier, be greedy. When people are greedy, be fearful. I've watched the stock market just go nuts over the last few years. I have money in the market. I'm in equities, and I've been funding things and doing like that. I've put money in it. But I'm holding about 60% cash right now, and have been for the last year.
Oh, wow.
Because I just looked for the last 8 to 10 years. It's just been on fire.
Right.
I don't know why it's going down, but it's going to. So when it dipped, I put a little bit in and bought some of those dips. I don't usually time the market, but in this situation, I made an exception.
Okay.
And it wasn't with an enormous amount. It was just with some that I specifically had for what I would call opportunistic investment.
Yes, I see.
That's what it was. Yep. I got a little real estate, a little bit. not residential. I just can't bring myself to be a residential landlord. I know that there are people that make $1 gazillion doing that, but I have my
Commercial.
own. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And then equities and yeah.
Fascinating.
Then,
So it's fascinating you settled on that cash.
Yeah.
During a time of some inflation, but also, I think that's what I have had a hard time with historically is sitting on cash.
Yes.
I like to get it working.
Let's deploy it. Absolutely.
And sometimes I've got it working a little sooner than I should have. But generally speaking, though, the getting it working is a good philosophy that has served us well over time. I mean, anytime you invest in something or put money somewhere, you got to do the due diligence. Otherwise, it's just silly.
Right.
But you can also overthink it, and sit around for too long waiting for just that perfect thing. And sometimes you just need to get it working.
And I definitely don't do that.
Right.
I tend to be, financially speaking, I don't want to say risk averse. I'm certainly not risk averse, but just measured risk.
Right. Yeah.
So there's certain things that I will not mess with. House is paid for. We don't mess with that. That's for mama. That's for my kids. That's for knowing there's a place for them to put their head if something happens to me, if something weird happens.
Yep.
If the world goes to hell in a handbasket, we got a place to live. Yep. It's a very modest home, very small, very modest, and it's ours. And so we don't play around with that. Carry no debt whatsoever of any kind. I'm real big on that. We just don't carry debt. I believe in having emergency funds, even way bigger than our friend Dave Ramsey recommends. Oh yeah, it's growing up poor.
Sure,
you growing up poor. I don't put my faith and my hope in those things, by the way, because they can disappear in about 3 seconds. Yep, my faith and my hope is in God, but on an earthly standpoint, I'm going to make sure that there's money there for weirdness. And so there's a mix of cash. There's equities. There's I invest in some businesses. And that's a long term.
Sure. Yep. I like it. Do you still travel like you had at one point with your family?
Yeah, we do.
At one point it was like once a year you guys would take like a couple of months, right, and go travel. Do you still do it to that extent, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
To the last gigantic trip was 2018. It was on that list, by the way, that 100 goals.
Okay.
And so that 100 goals that we wrote down, a bunch of those, a European tour was on there.
Oh,
and
cool.
So in 2018, me and my wife and 4 of our kids, we went to Europe for 2 months.
Where'd you go?
We flew from Nashville and we flew into London, immediately took a train up to Edinburgh, Scotland, spent 2 days there. Then we took a plane into Belfast, and we spent some time in Northern Ireland and got to see Bonnie's ancestral home. She knows, this is crazy, her family can trace their roots back to the Norman invasion of 1066 without a break.
Wow.
The begats. Yes.
Yeah.
So we were able to go to her ancestral place in Ireland, and that only dates back to about 1500. But prior to that, it was in England, and the castle that her family owned is still there.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's a newer castle. It was built in the late 1500s, so it's brand new.
Okay.
And so it's about an hour north of Bath, England, or maybe south of Bath, England.
It was made in the late 1500s. So it's brand new.
Brand new. So we did Ireland. We did if you took a knife and cut the island in half, we actually did the eastern half, all the way from the top to the bottom. We didn't do any of the west.
Is it as pretty as it sounds?
It is. There is not a picture. There is not a movie that can possibly describe how beautiful that place is. It is the most beautiful place I have ever seen in my life, and I have gotten to see some pretty places.
Really?
The green.
Ireland.
The green is, the Giant's Causeway is this amazing thing in the north. And we went in the fall, right before rainy season started. So the weather was just perfect, sunny. We got 1 or 2 rainy days out of 14 in Ireland. That's unheard of.
Wow.
Unheard of.
Right.
And so we got to see the things, we did a little bit in the cities, but we get a car.
Yeah.
I'd never driven a right-hand drive.
Yeah.
Stick shift.
Oh, wow.
So the stick shift's in your left hand.
A lot of cars over there are stick shift for whatever reason, right?
Almost all of them.
Why is that?
Better on fuel efficiency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Less to brake, I guess.
Less to brake.
Yeah.
And so we fly into Belfast, get the rental car. Thank God. 2 turns and you're in cow pastures. Thank God. Because I'm other side of the road, right-hand drive, Stick shift, which I know how to drive a stick,
with
but you
your
don't
left
shift.
hand
You
too.
shift with
That'd
your
be-
left. That's
Ooh,
right.
That's difficult.
And so your brain's just going,
Wow.
and it takes a second. And then it took me about 2 days to really get into the groove.
Yeah.
And I was jamming. I loved it.
Nice.
So we toured the country. We saw all kinds of stuff, some amazing things. I mean, the harp that the Guinness, I mean, I'm standing there in front of it, in Trinity College. It's just amazing. So then we go down and we take a ferry across to Wales. That was fun. Mm-hmm. Go into Wales, then we headed up to, let's see, from there we went to Bath, England, saw the Roman baths.
Yeah.
And then we went over to London and did some things there, just to show you that we like to have fun. The movie, I don't know if you're a movie guy. Are you a movie?
Oh, yeah, I love movies.
So Johnny English, the goofball.
Yeah.
Okay. That had just come out. We watched it in the middle of London at a theater.
Oh, cool.
So here we are in London.
Nice.
Watching an English movie. It was just
that's
neat.
great.
It was just kind of
what
cool.
a great memory.
It was.
So
we did all that stuff. Then we took the Channel thing, the train to Paris. Immediately went to Bayeux, where the Bayeux Tapestry is. Got to see that. And then we took a 1-day tour of Normandy. All the beaches, all the World War II stuff. We actually hired a private tour guide for that.
Oh,
it was
very
us
cool.
and him. That was it. Nobody else. And we went from 8 to 5:30. And my daughters were like, just so not wanting to do it. When we got done, this is what they said. Seriously, it's over with already?
Wow.
I mean, my boys were digging it, but my girls were like,
that sounds like something you spearheaded.
It was
the private
fun.
tour.
It was, yeah. So we did that. Then we went back to Paris. Bonnie's, we all did a top 10 list. These are the things we want to accomplish. And then the top 3, we made sure that everybody got to do their top 3.
Oh, cool.
And one of Bonnie's was to do the catacombs in Paris.
I've heard about these.
We did that on Halloween.
Ooh.
How cool is that?
I don't know about cool. Sounds kind of scary, honestly.
It was incredible. It was incredible.
And the catacombs in Paris, that's where they literally buried people, right?
Yeah, it was different from Rome. Rome
Right.
built theirs. Rome's were a lot older. Paris is about 200 or 300 years old. And what had happened was Paris sits on one of the best deposits. The city of Paris is on one of the best deposits of limestone in the world. It's an amazing deposit. So all the buildings that they built, all the roads that they built, they literally quarried it from under their feet.
Wow.
Yeah, so you've got about 20 feet of actual rock. And then underneath that, there's about a 6 to 10 foot gap where they had been harvesting the rock to build all the stuff. Well, it started imploding. It started sinking in.
Right.
At the same time, remember, there was no such thing at that time as a suburb. A city was a city.
Mm-hmm.
So they were having trouble with all of their graveyards were full.
Mm-hmm.
And they were burying 6 people deep in one grave. And it was starting to cause milk to spoil. It was rotting
what do you mean
food.
Now? The smell?
The smell, the decomposition. People were getting sick. It was horrible.
People that live close to it. It would
Anywhere
just
near
permeate the air.
Anywhere near it.
Really?
Yeah, food would get rancid real fast near it. And so 2 things happened at the same time that were not necessarily connected. The city officials needed to figure out a way to shore up the city so it wouldn't sink. So they employed all these engineers to figure out a way to shore up underneath there so that they wouldn't, all the stone that they had removed, so that the city wouldn't sink. While that was happening, they needed to figure out a way to move all these bodies. So somebody said, hey, so this is a great example of what we're talking about, looking at something over here and figuring out a way to apply it over here. Somebody said, been to Rome before, they got these catacombs. What if we take all these bodies that are in graves and very ceremoniously, very properly, very respectfully, build a catacomb? And so they did. And it took them years to do it. And they would do it at night. And they would do the rites. They would do all the Catholic rites and everything, the religious rites, and they would move it. So they started emptying out all of these graveyards that were inside the city and putting down 6 million people in the catacombs. And you get to tour it, and you tour what you feel like is 5 miles of nothing but bones. And they put them in these intricate patterns. They put the femurs, 2 rows deep femurs, and then all the way high. And then behind them, they just pile all the other bones. And then they put the skulls on the top and put them in. It's amazing to see this stuff. And it's right there.
Does it smell?
No, absolutely not.
There's no smell.
It's as dead as a cave.
Because everything's been decomposed,
That's correct.
picked off.
Oh, absolutely,
And so
yeah.
these are just clean bones. And
Absolutely.
you're walking through the tunnels, which are, On either side, you have these clean bones.
Right. Yeah, they didn't put any live corpses.
Where else would you see that?
It's insane.
It's
But
crazy.
they made these sculptures and stuff. They would make these grand designs in the walls, and they would do all kinds of. It is absolutely fascinating. Creepy as all get out, but
Right.
it is fascinating.
Yeah.
But so you get done, and you've been walking down there for a couple of hours, and you finally get up top, and they show you on a map what you just got through seeing, and it's this little bitty red line of like, it's incredible.
It's just hard to wrap your mind
It's
around.
insane.
That many people.
It's insane.
That many bones and
But
skeletons.
it was a brilliant solution to a problem. It was a simple, cheap solution to a problem, and they fixed it. So we did Paris, got done with all that. Then we went, took the train from Paris to Milan. Had a couple of God moments that only God could do. You cannot see some of the things we wanted to see unless you go months and months and months in advance. We wanted to see the Last Supper. And last minute, we find out about it, and we call. And the lady said, well, when do you want to see it? And we were like, November the 2nd. It's a Sunday. She says, are you aware that you can't get tickets on the internet on Sundays because our tours are free? All the museums in Italy are free on Sundays. We didn't know that. She said, how many tickets do you need? I said, 6. She goes, you're a very lucky individual. I have 6 left.
No way.
That's it.
That's very cool.
She goes, I want to give you your confirmation while we're on the phone.
Wow.
And it happened to be the 500th year of Da Vinci's death.
Oh, wow.
And so we got to go. We go in, and you go through airlocks. There's multiple airlocks you have to go through to dehumidify you and all that stuff. And you get to go in. Only 30 people at a time are allowed to go in. And when I say no photography, I mean they will bust you hard. You better not even pull your phone out. Just don't even think about it. And there's security guards looking. But you go into this room, and there it is. There it is on the wall. It's massive. It's like 20 feet by 60 feet. It's huge. And there's the actual Last Supper. There it is in front of you. Well, because it was the 500th anniversary of Da Vinci's death, all of the preparatory drawings that he did, they're there. From the House of Windsor, they lent them. So they're in the room. They're normally not there. So
Almost like practice drawings?
that's exactly, yeah. So like you draw a sketch, you sketch things out before you put it up on the wall. And so here you're looking at Peter and in the painting, he's leaning over talking to Jesus, and he's got his elbow up, right? There is the preparatory drawing of his arm. So you're looking at it, and then you look up, and there's the paint.
Dang.
It was one of the coolest moments I've ever had.
Wow, it gives me chills
It's
just talking
unbelievable.
about it.
It's
That's
amazing.
crazy.
And there's 30
That
people.
history like that is
It's
so
incredible.
cool.
30 people allowed in at a time. You could put your arms out like this and not touch another person beside you. So nobody's jockeying for position, none of that stuff. And you get 15 minutes in the room.
Wow.
15
That's
minutes.
it.
That's it. But it's incredible. 15 minutes. And you're not jockeying for position.
What's it painted on?
It is actually painted on the side of it was an abbey. It was like a monastery. And they needed something pretty. And he actually tried a new technique. Normally a fresco is in, you put it in wet plaster, and you got to work quickly. And so when you do that, I think the Sistine Chapel, I believe, may be one. I'm not certain, because we got to see that too. But you do it in the wet plaster. Okay, and then as it dries. Well, he was experimenting with a dry technique. He didn't do wet plaster. He was doing a paint on top of a dry wall. Within 6 years, it started failing.
Ooh.
So it had been restored so many times, it was insane. If you look at pictures from just 20 or 30 years ago, before they did this last restoration, it was horrible. Absolutely horrible.
Okay.
So
because chunks were falling off
it was
or whatever.
terrible. Yeah.
Okay.
And oddly enough, all the other walls, and the majority of the walls in that abbey were destroyed during World War II.
Wow.
It didn't touch that one.
Wow.
It's incredible.
It is.
And if you look at a painting of it, you'll see where Jesus' feet are supposed to be. There's a door there. They cut a door there. They just needed a door. We look at that and go, it's a work of Da Vinci. For them, it was just like, some street artist throwing something up there.
Isn't
They were
that
like, well,
something?
yeah. And so there's a door. If you look at it, where his feet would be, it's right there at the foot of his door.
Yeah.
And so, it's amazing. So we got to see that, and we got to do the same thing happened at the Vatican. We're not Catholic, but we wanted to go there and see some things. There's the main level that you see. Then there's the area where all the popes are buried. That's open to the public. Then there's an area below that, which was from the foundations of the beginning. That's called the necropolis. Only 150 people are allowed in there a day. you got to reserve it 6 months, a year in advance. Another thing we got lucky on. So we go down in there, and here's what it was. According to their lore, that is the site where St. Peter was buried.
Oh, wow.
Okay. Well, they knew that. And the church was a wooden church until the 1300s. So for 1,300 years, it had been buried on. It was buried in a hillside. The dimensions, according to their lore, they knew exactly what it would be like. A pagan burial ground facing this way. It should be the spot and all that stuff. And then the church was it burned down in 1300s. They rebuilt it, and then eventually Michelangelo did the dome and all that stuff. Which, by the way, if you don't know this, you can actually set the Statue of Liberty inside St. Peter's Basilica on its base.
Wait a minute.
And you still have 90 feet to go before you get to the top. You heard me right. You can take the Statue of Liberty on its base and stick it inside St. Peter's.
This building.
Inside St. Peter's, where the dome is, where the Pope sits. Right above him is that dome. And you still have 100 feet to go before you get to the top. It is insane.
What's so insane about that is they didn't build that with the technology that we have today.
It's unbelievable.
How do they even do that?
Oh,
it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, there's a well, anyway, yeah. So it's incredible to get to see that stuff. But underneath that is that necropolis. So anyway, supposedly, I think it was Pope Pius XIII, something like that, around 1944, something like that, World War II era, somewhere in there. None of the popes, supposedly, according to our guide, had the guts to actually do the archaeological digging to see if what they had written was correct. And this one said, I'm your Huckleberry.
Okay.
But I'm going to do it in secret.
Okay.
So he got 5 of the best archaeologists in the world, said, start digging. But you're going to work at night, and all the stuff that you pull out of here is going to be in the garden that we're building.
Oh, and they're looking for what? St. Peter's bones?
They're looking
for
his
burial
site? They're looking for his burial site. Well, what they found was some interesting stuff, and you get to see this. You can't take pictures, none of that stuff. It's the first known image of Christ.
Down there?
Down there.
There's a painting, or what is it?
It is actually a mosaic.
Oh, wow.
Now, remember, this is 1st century.
How do they know it's Jesus Christ?
Okay. It looks like Horus, the sun god. Looks just like him. If you're a pagan and you looked at that, you'd be like, well, that's Horus. No. Really? The people that owned that particular mausoleum, they were Christians.
Oh, okay.
But if you were caught being a Christian, you're killed.
Right.
So they had to make this thing look like Horus.
Oh, I see.
Because they later found the fish symbols.
Oh, yeah.
Later on.
Yeah.
So as they excavate, eventually they find what they believe is this tomb. Again, this is all according to them. They find what is this tomb. There's no bones. Then they read some more and find out that Constantine, 300s, roughly in there, he built a memorial to him. Not an altar, a memorial. And he had these columns built. Now, the columns are about 2 feet tall. They're fluted columns. They found them. And inside, there was a box with the bones.
No way.
Right where they said. An interesting thing is they were missed. There's no feet bones in it. There's no foot bones. Now, why would that be interesting? Why would that help prove their point? This was pretty cool.
That it was St. Peter's bones?
Yeah. Why would there not being feet bones in there help?
I have no idea. The only thing I could think of is that one time he said, don't wash my feet only, but my whole body.
Supposedly he was martyred by being crucified upside down. When they removed the body, what would be the easiest way to do it?
Cut the feet off?
That's it. Cut the feet off and take the body down. Isn't that wild? And you can see it. But only if you go. So it was pretty neat.
Could you see the bones today?
Yeah.
Did you see the bones?
Yeah. Yeah, you can see where
you saw what is potentially or likely the bones of Peter.
Yeah. And again, I don't know how much of that I believe, but boy, it made a great story. And it was neat.
But it also could have been. It could be.
It very well could have been. And here's the thing I can say about this. It was really neat to get to see that when you're down there in that necropolis, you are in a 1st century pagan burial site. And you get to see some of the first known images of anything Jesus-like or Christ-like at all. It's 1st century. It was incredible. And they're preserved. Because remember, they've been buried for 2,000 years. That's what saved them.
Right.
Being buried saved them.
Yeah.
And they have to pipe. This is odd. They don't want the humidity out. It's actually about 90% humidity down there.
Okay.
You feel like you're coming out of the jungle because all of those things that are on the walls and everything are now exposed to air. It will make them brittle and they'll fall off.
If it gets too dry.
If it gets too dry.
So they need to keep it humid.
They got to keep it humid. Yeah.
So what's just striking to me about that is how rooted in history and the everyday the Christian religion is.
Amazing.
There was a Peter. Here
Yes.
might be his bones.
That's right.
There was a Jesus, the Christ. He
Yes.
was on earth and he walked. And here's some replicas. It's just, a lot of religions don't have that. It's very ethereal. It's very based on theory. It's very sort of out there. It's kind of in the clouds. The Christian religion is so down to earth. It's so rooted in history. And, it exploded our calendar. We have BC to AD, but there's a whole lot of other things where you have to almost be able to ignore or have other theories for history if you want to get away from Jesus the Christ, the Son of the living God.
Well, I mean, it's like I think C.S. Lewis said, he was either a maniac or he was the Christ.
Right.
He was one of the two.
Yes.
And I love that. I mean,
yes, I do. I love that too. And he couldn't have just been a good moral teacher because it would have been insane the things that he was saying.
Right.
And you can't say he wasn't here because there's so much data to prove that he was here.
Right.
So now what do you do with it?
Well, the data outside the Bible.
Right.
I mean, secular stuff.
Yep.
There's tons.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. So it was neat. We did that. We got to see that. We went down to Florence. My top list, number one on my list for the entire trip, was to see the dome in Florence.
Okay.
If you don't know the story, all these cities at the time, the communities, these areas, these towns are building these cathedrals, and they got to one-up each other. So Florence at the time was very wealthy, and they built this gigantic, huge cathedral. This was going to be the largest in the world at the time. And they have no idea how they're going to build the dome. How are we going to build a dome across it? It's just so big, we didn't know how we were going to do it. So Brunelleschi, he's this guy. He was a goldsmith. He didn't know anything about engineering. He wasn't formally trained, which was to his advantage. He said, I can build a dome. So they held this competition, and all these people submitted what they were going to do. And he said, I won't tell you how I'm going to do it. They said, well, you can't win. He goes, I'll tell you what. This is what I'm going to do. He takes an egg, and he says, if any of the other engineers can get this egg to stand up on end, then give the commission to them. So they call him back in. They said, nobody else can figure out how to stand the egg up on the end. How are you going to do it? And he takes the egg and he breaks it. He didn't say he couldn't break it. He breaks it and it sits on the table. And if you actually translate the term that he uses for that, it's smashed ass. That's what that means.
Really?
He smashed the egg. That's what it means. And it stood up and they all looked at each other. So they gave him the commission. And what he did, this is amazing. It was called spina pesce, which is like spine of the fish. And that's herringbone. He used a herringbone pattern to build that tower. Now listen to this.
What's herringbone?
It's an interlocking pattern like this.
Okay.
So there's no faults or seams where a seam could crack. It can't because of the way that it's built. It overlaps. They did not use scaffolding to build that. They didn't use. They used scaffolding. They didn't use. Normally, you would build like a wooden frame.
A support.
A support.
Yep.
You would build your thing on top of it.
Yep.
Take the support
Carefully
down.
take the support down.
Because 50% of the time they failed.
Holy
50% of the time they failed.
That's crazy.
You've spent however many years you've spent building this thing, decades building this dome. You finally take the supports down and you say,
Half the time.
Okay, John, pull the last one. And John pulls the last one and down comes the dome. Half of the time.
That's insane.
They didn't use supports. He keeps building this dome. And here's the cool thing about it. When you take the tour of the dome, you can see the original brickwork and see how they did it. It is absolutely fascinating. Then you get to the top of it. There's a dome on top of it, a big gold ball. And supposedly Da Vinci or Michelangelo, one of them had lunch inside the ball while they were building it. That's kind of cool.
Oh, wow. That is
so
cool.
all that stuff's there. And you get the history. We went to the Leaning Tower of Pisa. We got to walk the steps of that. My kids, we got to harvest olives. We stayed in Florence. We stayed in an olive vineyard, and we got to help harvest olives. Went to one of the last two granite stone presses to olive
With the
juice.
stone press, they make an olive oil?
Olive oil.
Because olive oil there is an art.
That is correct.
It's right up there with the wine,
That's
right? I mean, it's really...
And this was for eating. This is not for cooking. It's cloudy looking, and it is the best thing you've ever eaten in your life.
Really?
Oh, my word. It's unbelievable.
Do you eat it with some bread?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's incredible. Put some fresh cracked pepper on top of it. I'm telling you,
man,
it's
that sounds
unbelievable.
really great.
And the Airbnb we stayed at, our host, Antonio, he is a professor at the university. And so we're about 15 minutes outside of the city of Florence. Our Airbnb, $120 a night.
Wow.
And we're on an 80-acre olive farm.
Wow, that's cool.
I mean, it's incredible. So we
You
got
have
to do
4
all that
kids with you.
stuff, and then we spent a month in Italy. We went all
okay.
the way down Italy, went over to Pompeii, saw Pompeii, Naples, did all that. Finished up in Rome, met some friends of ours, spent a week there with them. Finished out about 5 days in Rome. Got to go to the Colosseum, do all that stuff that you do in Rome. It was fantastic, and they had just come off of a garbage strike, so the city was spotless. Well, normally the city's pretty trashy.
Okay.
As a big city, Rome's fairly
Rome.
trashy
Yeah,
city.
yeah, I've heard that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they had just finished a big garbage strike. So they had cleaned up all that mess. So we're
see.
walking around going, we don't get it. Like, this is
Oh,
clean.
interesting.
It was
Yeah.
wonderful.
Huh.
And I mean, it was like a week or two before we got there. So it was just fantastic. We loved it. It was great. And so then we flew to England, to London, and then flew home.
Wonderful.
So
Now, the Europe trip aside, I know you would. What were you after with your trips? Because you would go out west, say, or
Yeah.
travel around America for 1-2
6
months a
weeks.
year, right? 6
6
weeks
weeks, yeah.
sometimes, often.
Yeah.
Are you looking for family time? Are you looking to see the country? What are you after? What was your philosophy with these trips?
all of those, it's again, it's we go so fast, we go so hard, we just nobody stops to take a time to just enjoy anymore, and we have become so efficient. We no longer have to take hours to prepare a meal.
Right.
We no longer have to take hours to do the laundry. We have machines that do that for us in minutes. Well, what are we doing with that time? What are we doing with all that time we have left over? And so it's a way for us to slow down, to get to see this country, which I cannot express how patriotic I am. I love this country. I love it. I love its people. I love its ideals. To stand in the room where for 6 months, James Madison holed himself up so that he could write the Constitution of the United States. I've been there. My wife and I have been in the actual dome of the National Archives alone to see the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence.
Wow, that's cool.
Us and 2 security guards, nobody else.
Wow.
Because they said folks were closing in 15 minutes and everybody left. And I asked the security guard, can we still look at the document? She goes, you got 15 minutes, honey, enjoy them. And it's just me and my wife in there.
Yeah.
So to get to see these things, you want to see the Eiffel Tower? There it is. Old Statue of Liberty, it's right there. Go ahead. To be at, you like buffaloes here. This is great. Bison. We're at the Theodore Roosevelt National Park. Theodore Roosevelt lost his wife and his mom on the same day, on Valentine's Day. Lost his wife and his mom, same day. And he's losing his mind. He's going crazy. So he's just got to get away. This is before he's president. He's got to get away. He goes up to North Dakota and that territory. And what we know of today as the Theodore Roosevelt National Park, he is a rancher there. Well, we got to go there and hike and spend some time there. It was at the end of the season, which is when we like to travel. So nobody's there. They've got the bathrooms closed down. They don't have picnic tables, nothing. It's just, you can come in, but that's it. And you're walking around and there's these natural lavender and sage plants, and it's whirling around and you can smell it. I go down to this river by myself. The sun is coming down. Not kidding. Right over there is a buffalo, just munching on some grass. No, there's nobody around. Nobody is in the park because it's the end of the season, getting ready to be the harsh winter. Beautiful sunny day. Look up on the hill. At the same time, here's this little bitty coyote bounding up on the hill. It was like a Disney movie. Here's a little rabbit running. All this happened at the same time. And here's this brook at my feet and this water. It's that place you go. It's that happy place.
That's a lifetime memory, because don't you just get a sense of the grandeur of creation in those moments?
I don't see how you could be an atheist.
Right.
If you've seen the things I've seen, I just don't understand how somebody could deny the existence.
How do you explain it away?
Don't tell me it was some rock hurling through space.
Yeah, I don't know.
Accidentally.
I don't know that it could have been. There's too much detail. There's too much that's not really necessary. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's so much extracurricular things that have been created just out of the
Right.
sake of beauty, or someone that has just every capacity and there's no limits. And that's what you get. But moments like that, I think there's things that we can get from nature that I just don't think we can get from anything else.
Yeah.
When
Yeah.
you're in a moment like that, man, it really does center you, and you just get this perspective of sort of where your place is in this world.
Well, it is. And one of the things is you have to make choices for that. We choose to live lean. We choose to live so we can travel. We want to see these things. My wife and I, we've seen 49 of the states. We got Alaska left. That's it. And my mom, my whole life had dreamt of going to Hawaii. Took her for her 60th birthday. We got to snorkel in Kanapali Bay.
Oh, that's great.
I mean, it's the number one beach in the world several times. Why? Because we're intentional about it.
Right.
Because we're intentional about it. I'm very grateful, extremely blessed, very grateful. But we choose to take that time. We choose to allocate that money. We choose to do those things instead of a Porsche. Which, if you want a Porsche, by the way, go get one. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it's our choice.
Yes.
When my kids watch a movie, it is very rare of any movie for them to watch it and go, "Hey, we've been there." We watched Doctor Strange last night. I've never seen Marvel, Doctor Strange. I've never seen it. And it's one of the only Marvel movies I hadn't seen. And they're in New York. I've been there.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, this is the Golden Gate Bridge. We've been there. Brooklyn Bridge, we walked across that.
Yeah.
But then you get some of the weird, obscure places. And we don't do it for that, but it's so neat. And by the way, my older ones are starting to learn, hey, that's not normal.
Right. No, it's not normal.
That's not normal.
It's not normal at all. But you're spot on with, these places are out there. There's nothing holding you back from going and experiencing them except time and money.
Well,
and then you got to have priorities because, like you said, you're not doing everything. You choose to say no to some things to give you the ability to do some of these things, which is really great.
Our travel issue happened. There was a lady that used to work at the bank, Miss Pearl. She was so precious. Miss Pearl, she did it right. Kent, she did it right. Her and her husband raised their kids. They had no debt. Their house was paid off. And they married young. She was 14 when they got married. So he's getting ready to retire from the post office.
Who is this?
This was Miss Pearl. Miss Pearl used to work at the bank.
That you know her?
I know her. Yeah.
And she got married when she was 14?
She was 14. Got married when she was 14
cow.
years old. And her husband's getting ready to retire. She is mid-50s now. He has worked for 40 years for the post office. He's a little older. They're getting ready to retire. 6 months before he is to retire, he gets killed in a head-on crash. Somebody comes over the hill, sun blinds the person, boom, hits him head on, he's gone. All of those plans that they had laid aside, gone. 2 seconds, gone. Miss Pearl didn't take any of those trips because she wanted to take them with her husband. I said, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I will live in a small house. I will drive older used cars. Wardrobe, what are you talking about? I was Goodwill before Goodwill was cool because I want to go see those places. And I don't want to wait till I'm 73. I want to see them while I'm young enough to enjoy it. Not that you can at 73, but I don't know what that holds. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if you're going to get some virus and they're going to shut places down. I don't know if there's going to be some crazy uprising in some place that I really want to see and I'm not going to be able to go see it. I don't know. So I'm not waiting. Now, it doesn't mean I'm irresponsible. There's definitely responsibleness here. And we plan things, we plot things, and we are real good about trying to figure out deals. And, we do all our own planning and stuff. And so that really helps. But I recommend to people, if you want to go see that thing, go see it.
Yeah.
Don't wait.
I really respect that. I think that's extremely wise. Extremely wise. And I think it's maybe a little more common, or you hear of that a little bit more today than maybe our grandparents' day. Back then, it seemed like very much like save all the fun stuff or save some of your dreams until you retire at 75.
But that's a testament to our part of the things that make us weak could also be the things that can free us up to do amazing things. And that is this great economy that we live in a society where things are readily available to us. And so one of the things that come with that, one of the benefits is mobility.
Right.
If you went to Europe 50 years ago, I mean, you saved your entire life for it and you were gone for 10 days, I mean, it was just massive. 150 yeyears ago, what are you talking about? Only the wealthy of the wealthy could do that. Or oddly enough, the extremely poor, and they came over, So they're the middle class. Middle class people can do it. Now, if you've got car payments If you got 17 cell phone plans, if you have the latest and greatest of the Comcast or Xfinity and all this crap that people put in their lives, unless you have a very high income, you can't do stuff like this. And then how many people have great incomes, but they don't have the time?
Sure. Yeah.
So time and money.
Right.
So setting yourself up, your life up where it's weird.
Yep.
And we know we're weird. Bonnie and I know we're really weird.
I love it. I love it, dude.
So.
Well, thanks for being on.
It's been a blast.
Yeah, thanks for sharing the stories. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anything you'd want to leave with the listeners? We close, and I'll let you out of here.
Ask great questions. Be curious. Be curious. Don't stop. Don't stop learning. And if people don't like it, it's okay. Don't worry about them. Just if your friend's telling you you're weird, you know you're on the right track. Keep going.
I love it. I love it. Well, I don't think I'll be able to add on to that. So, Rick Haley, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right.